Chapter 1133. Young Lady Hua couldn't bear to see Mr. Rin being killed. Unfortunately, her dustpan had to save Butcher just now. Otherwise, she might have been able to help Mr. Rin block this knife. Boom! Butcher's knife directly split Mr. Ren's bamboo hat. That bamboo hat was directly split into two. The butcher's knife went through the middle of Mr. Ren's head. Mr. Ren's whole body was split into two halves. In an instant, the spiritual light diffused and the galaxy shook. Boss Qian frowned, because he couldn't believe what had happened. After all, Mr. Rin didn't even use the power of White Mountain. As a law enforcer, Boss Qian naturally knew how powerful the power of White Mountain was. Even if Butcher used a trick just now, it was impossible for him to kill Mr. Rin with one knife. That would be next to impossible. Young master! This, Maid Hua exclaimed. Jia Shuxing stood in the galaxy with a cold smile, unmoving. He thought to himself, Butcher, the fisherman is still testing you. You really put yourself in a dead end with this knife. Otherwise, the fisherman might not kill you. When he looked again, Butcher also raised his eyebrows after the slash. Because although he felt that he had personally killed Mr. Rin, he didn't feel Mr. Ren's immortal heart shattering and his soul dispersing. At this time, young Lady Hua also opened her eyes. She also didn't feel Mr. Ren's death. Boom, Hua, and at this moment, huge waves suddenly rolled up under Butcher's feet. Those waves were like long snakes turning into circles, directly entangling Butcher's body. At that moment, Butcher's expression changed greatly. Those big waves had endless entangling power, and he seemed to have fallen into some kind of array, unable to escape at all. Boss Qian couldn't help but secretly shake his head. He could see that it was the water of Observation Lake. He was right before. Observation Lake was Mr. Ren's territory, and at this time, Butcher was completely trapped in it. Whoosh! The water of Observation Lake was crazy like a demon, and each wave was thousands of feet high. Escape! Butcher made a hand seal. At the same time, he raised his hand and summoned a black light. It was a black wooden boat. Wooden boat. Jia Shuxing, Boss Qian, and Lady Hua frowned slightly. This was because it was a wooden boat that Master Mu had made before he left Fallen Mortal Town. It could be said that those wooden boats were the immeasurable ship's practice. However, it was said that Master Mu did not leave behind those immature wooden boats. He didn't expect Butcher to have one. Although the wooden boat couldn't compare to the immeasurable ship, it was still a first-class lianhua. The moment the wooden boat appeared, it lifted Butcher up. However, the wooden boat did not escape with Butcher. Instead, it stopped in midair. At this time, not far away, waves were surging. Another Mr. Rin slowly rose from the water. His clothes were still the same, and he held the fishing rod in his hand. However, he did not wear a bamboo hat on his head. Instead, it was hanging on his back. Mr. Rin was handsome, but his eyes were cold at the moment. Young master, what's going on? Seeing this scene, Maid Hua couldn't help but ask her young master. Mirror technique. Jia Shuxing said. Just now, what Butcher chopped down was actually a mirror image of the fisherman. There were reflections everywhere on Guanshi Lake. That lake is the fisherman's territory. Is that the real Mr. Rin now? If he wants to be real, then he's real. If he wants to be fake, then he's fake. Jia Shuxing laughed. Amazing! Maid Hua praised sincerely. Butcher, you can't leave today. Mr. Rin looked at Butcher on the wooden boat and laughed coldly. I didn't expect that we would reach this stage. I don't want to be a puppet and a dog anymore, but you are willing to endure hardship. Humph! Butcher held the butcher's knife and said coldly, Mr. Rin, so what if you kill me? No one can change by Shan's will. Mr. Rin shook his head. You think too much. I never thought of changing by Shan's will. I only want to change my own will. I don't want to be a puppet. I want to decide everything for myself. Arrogant. On the wooden boat, Butcher suddenly jumped up. However, just as he was about to jump, he was hit back onto the boat by a big wave. At this moment, he could no longer escape. Kill, however, Butcher still waved his hand. A black gas rushed out from between his eyebrows. His soul actually flew out from his body and attached to the butcher's knife, heading straight for Mr. Ren. All in one throw, the soul left the body. Jia Shuxing, Boss Qian, and Lady Hua didn't move, because this was already a battle of life and death. No matter who participated, it would be a battle of life and death. Sink! Mr. Ren roared. Looking at the wild rolling waves, it was as if young Master Ren had brought Guan Shi Lake here. The canoe sank violently. At the same time, the fishing rod in Mr. Ren's hand shook. On the heaven hook, endless cold light suddenly lit up. This time, it didn't have countless hooks, but only one. A silver rainbow streaked across the starry sky. At that moment, the heaven hook in Mr. Ren's hand seemed to be able to break the entire starry sky. Clang, boom, the heaven hook directly hung on the butcher's knife. The butcher's knife was also a lianbua. However, its grade was incomparable to the heaven hook. Although it had the support of Butcher's soul, Mr. Ren had already attached a soul-suppressing talisman to the heaven hook. The butcher's knife was hung by the heaven hook. The soul-suppressing talisman was activated, and Butcher's soul roared ferociously on the butcher's knife. At the same time, Mr. Ren raised one hand and scooped up a handful of lake water. Destroy! Mr. Ren shouted coldly. The handful of lake water directly entangled Butcher's soul on the butcher's knife. Whoosh! Then, the lake water suddenly burst into flames. At that moment it was not like lake water, but more like fuel. Then, it forcibly refined Butcher into black smoke. Butcher's screams were incessant, but it was too late to save him. At the same time, Mr. Ren's hand shook, and the heaven hook trembled. Poof, boom. The butcher's knife flew back with the momentum of splitting Mount Hua, and directly cut Butcher's body, which was still sinking, into two halves. Then, the wooden boat, the two halves of the corpse, and the butcher's knife all sank into the whirlpool of the lake water. Butcher's soul was extinguished. "Young master, Butcher is so pitiful," Fu Hua said with some trepidation. At this moment, he still felt a little shaken. After all, that was an internal battle in the Eastern Division, something that had never happened before. "Ha ha!" Jia Shuxing waved his paper fan and sneered. "If he's not pitiful, then he's pitiful because he's fishing." After killing Butcher, Mr. Ren held the fishing rod in his hand. Clear waves were still rippling under his feet, and his gaze was still as cold as ice. "Lady Hua, are you going to stop me too?" Lady Hua heard and couldn't help but smile sadly. "Mr. Ren, I just don't want the Eastern Division to kill each other. Other than that, I have no other intentions. Just now I was too reckless. Now that Butcher is dead, you can do whatever you want." As she spoke, Lady Hua waved her hand and retrieved her dustpan, turned around, and disappeared. Mr. Ren looked at Boss Qian again. "What do you say, Boss Qian?" Boss Qian laughed. "I'm a businessman, I don't do things that make me lose money. Mr. Ren, you're indeed more skillful, I admire you. I'm just watching the show." Boss Qian, great wisdom. The corner of Mr. Ren's mouth curled up, and then he went straight in the direction of happiness and Sumi. No one dared to stop him. Chapter 1134. Mr. Ren's figure gradually disappeared. Jia Shuxing cupped his hands at Boss Qian and said with a smile, "Boss Qian, may your business prosper and you make a fortune. I'll take my leave now." Boss Qian returned Jia Shuxing's greeting. "Scholar, thank you for your blessings. However, there's something I don't know if I should say." "Boss Qian, please say it." Jia Shuxing didn't move and said with a smile, while holding a folding fan. "You, me, and Mr. Ren are White Mountain's law enforcers. In addition, there are blacksmiths, flower ladies, and others in East Fence Village." Boss Qian paused. "Scholar, East Fence Village is different from the other villages. The three of us have different statuses. I don't know what Butcher did. However, Mr. Rin seems to be a little impulsive. Scholar, I still hope you can persuade Mr. Rin. If we become enemies with White Mountain, we probably won't have a good ending. After all, our power comes from White Mountain. White Mountain will punish Mr. Rin for what he did. I think you and I are both guilty of negligence of supervision. Boss Qian's tone was very sincere, and what he said was the truth. Scholar, think thrice before you act. Jia Shuxing pondered for a moment and then nodded slowly. Don't worry, Boss Qian. I know what I'm doing. As for young Master Ren's matter, I will definitely try my best to persuade him so that he won't cause any trouble for us. I hope you can forgive me for today's matter. Scholar is reasonable, everything can be discussed. Boss Qian cupped his hands. The world has changed, but there are too many variables. We should all think about how to protect ourselves. I, Boss Qian, will definitely not do unnecessary things. Scholar, don't worry. With that, Boss Qian disappeared. Young Master, are we going to chase after Mr. Rin? Servant Painting asked after Boss Qian left. Chase after him for what? Jia Shuxing was stunned. Didn't you say that you will try your best to persuade Mr. Rin? Heh! Jia Shuxing shook his head. How can we believe a merchant's words? So, don't take what I said to the merchant seriously. Let's return to the World Tower now. What do you want? Servant Hua asked. Set up the array. Jia Shuxing smiled and said, We naturally have to help windmill and fishing. The fisherman was right, in fact, none of us wanted to be a puppet. So, we can do whatever we want. Young Master is wise, the maid praised. Stop flattering me. Let's go. Jia Shuxing's feet moved, directly returning to the World Listening Tower with Muse Hua. Merry Village and Merry Village had completely merged into one. Now, this united world was infinitely close to becoming a great world. In other words, it was about to meet the conditions for a guardian king to descend into the world. Although there could only be one law emperor, it was already very difficult. They were much faster than the other villages. In space, Du Shuxing and Bai Yifeng traveled side by side. At this moment, they were already standing outside two villages. From afar, the two villages were shrouded in mist, making it difficult to see anything clearly. However, their auras were very powerful. Now, the aura of Merriment Village far surpassed that of the other fallen mortal villages. How is it? The village's barrier array can't stop us, right? Du Shuxing looked at the misty Merriment Village and asked Bai Yifeng, who was beside him. No problem. Bai Yifeng nodded. Second senior brother, have you made it clear to Scholar? If he doesn't shield our auras, then there will be some trouble afterward. I believe that Scholar will do it. Du Shuxing said confidently. He is definitely a reliable person. Bai Yifeng thought of Mr. Rin and could not help but smile. The people in East Orchard seemed to be quite nice. Hee. Du Shuxing said, Little junior sister, some people are just nice to you, love me and my dog. Second senior brother. Bai Yifeng's eyes lit up. I promised Mr. Rin that if we meet again, I will be with him. Oh? Haha. Du Shuxing could not help but laugh loudly, then said with relief, This is a good promise. I only hope that we, the 9th generation of Windwheel, can return to White Mountain. That way we might get a chance to start over. Bai Yifeng looked into the distance and nodded heavily. Even if the hope is slim, there is still hope. Second senior brother, let's begin. All right. Du Shuxing nodded. Looking again, Bai Yifeng's expression became serious, then she began to form a seal with her hands. At the same time, 5 array flags of different colors, green, red, white, black, and yellow, flew out from behind her. Each array flag was divided into 5 sides. Whoosh, whoosh. Following Bai Yifeng's spell, the 5 array flags rolled. Then, Bai Yifeng would plant array flags at intervals of a certain distance. Some places only had 1 side, some places had 2 or 3. Different colors, different combinations. Du Shuxing knew a little about array formations, but he was not as proficient as Bai Yifeng. Even so, he could see that Bai Yifeng's array formation was profound. It was slowly breaking through the barrier of Merriment and Merriment Village. At this time, a road was gradually forming under their feet. The fog spread out, rolling like a tide. Bai Yifeng and Du Shuxing walked straight toward Merriment Village. Wherever they went, there was no longer any obstruction. With one step, they stepped into Merriment Village. Hearing Tower. In front of Jia Shuxing and Maid Painting was a large table. Usually, Jia Shuxing was not often in Hearing Tower. Most of the time it was Maid Painting who was on duty. When there was nothing to do, Maid Painting would spread a piece of paper on this large table and scribble randomly. However, the large table had been cleaned up today. There was no paper, ink, brush, or scrolls on it. Instead, there was a sand table. That sand table showed the entire fallen mortal town. It was surrounded by immortal chi of different colors. Eastleigh, Cut Sleeve, Windwheel, Merriment, 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 and Star River villages were all on it. Moreover, this sand table was special in that it was not static, but dynamic. It would change according to the changes in Fallen Mortal Town. Maid Painting, this is Fallen Mortal Sand Table. Jia Shuxing stood in front of the sand table and said in an educating tone, "Today, you have to look carefully." NN. Maid Painting hurriedly nodded. In name, he was Jia Shuxing's book attendant. In reality, he was Jia Shuxing's only disciple. If anything happened to Jia Shuxing, this hearing tower would be managed by Maid Painting. Everyone knows that I have the world-listening God brush. As the saying goes, heartless great Tao 3,000 doors, the world-listening God brush is a universe. Jia Shuxing sighed, however, only you know that we actually have a fallen mortal sand table. With the world-listening God brush and fallen mortal sand table working together, even if we meet Dharma Lotus Venerable in fallen mortal town, we can still fight. Saying that, Jia Shuxing opened one hand. The 3-feet-long world-listening God brush was already in his hand. Scholar stood in front of the sand table, giving off a sense of passing judgment. Maid Painting looked at the sand table seriously and asked, "Young master, the different colors of immortal chi on the sand table represent the different situations of each village, right?" "That's right." Jia Shuxing nodded. "Look, the Mist of East Hedge, Cut Sleeve, Star River, and Wind Wheel villages are all green now. This means that they are all villages with Lotus warriors. And look at that place, it is gray. That's because it's a dead village. Wind Wheel, Sumeru and the others were gray before. But the immortal chi of Deity Tribulation Village has already dissipated, because Devil Boy and White Lotus Boy completely erased it. But why is Ink Mountain Village black?" Maid Painting was confused. And Jia Shuxing looked at the black fog above Ink Mountain Village, frowned and nodded, because Ink Mountain Village did not seem to have any Lotus warriors, but it was never dead. That is a mystery. Now Black Lotus seems to have returned. The descent of Dharma King. Maid Painting could not help but be shocked. Chapter 1135. The Descent of a Law King? Jia Shuxing shook his head at Muse Hua's words. To be precise, he hasn't descended yet. However, he is in between descending and not descending. Fu Hua frowned. He didn't quite understand Scholar Jia's words. In other words, Black Lotus Law King is only one step away from us, Jia Shuxing said. As soon as the time is right, he will immediately descend. He must be waiting for an opportunity. What opportunity? Muse Painting asked again. That depends on what Black Lotus thinks. Jia Shuxing sighed. Theoretically, he should want to enter the true law realm. However, Black Lotus's actions always gave people a feeling of seeming right but actually wrong, like looking at flowers through a fog. Right now, I still can't figure it out. Perhaps he's waiting for another Law Emperor to descend. Jia Shuxing pondered for a moment before speculating. After all, the door of truth isn't that easy to open. It's a pity that I'm not at the Dermic Lotus realm. I don't know what that realm thinks. Windwheel young Master Do and Miss Bai went to kill the people of Merry Village and Merry Village in order to prevent another Law Emperor from descending? That should be it. Jia Shuxing confirmed his speculation. Mr. Ren wanted to help Miss Windmill Bai, but Butcher wanted to stop him. So, they fought to the death? Muse Hua was still confused. Why would Butcher do that? Hee. Jia Shuxing nodded. Butcher should be White Mountain's spy. The fisherman once said that Li Jiangfeng and Monk Yixiu were killed by the devil for stealing Sumo's soul. There was once a person who was observing him in the dark and had a conversation with him. That person should be Butcher. However, I vaguely feel that something is wrong. Actually, if Bai Shan wanted to deal with Mr. Ren, there was no need for him to go through so much trouble. Furthermore, Butcher wasn't a White Mountain law enforcer. It would be very difficult for him to fight against fishermen with his strength alone. Unless there were also people playing chess on White Mountain. Ha! Jia Shuxing shook his head in self-mockery. Because he felt that the idea was a little ridiculous. However, there might be someone else behind the Butcher. Boss Qian? The painting attendant suddenly said. It's hard to say. Jia Shuxing smiled bitterly. The current situation is very chaotic. No one could be easily trusted. We can only adapt to the situation. Let's help Windmill first. Yes. The masked painter nodded and looked at the sand table again. Jia Shuxing pointed at the sand table. Happiness Village and Sumeru Village have merged. Their auras are completely connected. Before long, it will become the first large world in Fallen Mortal Town. However, we can seal its aura. That way, others won't know that this place is already a greater world, and from there, Law Kings won't be able to descend upon it, Shihua said. That's right. Jia Shuxing looked at Shihua appreciatively. However, we can only seal this aura for 3 days. Any more and it would be impossible. 3 days is the time we have bought for Windmill. Whether or not they can revive Sumo within 3 days will depend on fate. Yes. Muse Hua nodded heavily. Jia Shuxing pointed at the sand table again. Painting attendant, I'll set up a barrier around merriment in a moment. These enchantments will absorb their immortal chi and make their aura turbid. Yet, you want to paint on the outside of my enchantments. Muse Hua pouted. Gongzi, actually I draw pretty well too. Although I'm not as good as you, other than a few top-notch figures in Fallen Mortal Town, the rest will most likely not be able to break my formation. How can you just doodle like that? Jia Shuxing laughed. That's even better. Your formation will disrupt the aura of the entire Fallen Mortal realm. That would make Summer Joy's aura even more unfathomable. That way, it will be your great contribution. All right. Muse Hua nodded. Let's begin. Jia Shuxing didn't say anything else and raised the listening divine pen in his hand. At that moment, his entire temperament changed. Heartless Great Tao 3000 Doors, World Listening Divine Brush 1 Universe. The couplet at the entrance of the Tower of Listening was not an exaggeration. Scholar Jia was definitely the godly brush Maoliang of Luofan Town. The brush fell on the sand table, and mist appeared. The world-listening divine brush in Jia Shuxing's hand moved, and 3 inches of bright light appeared on the tip of the brush. Swish, 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 with a flick of his wrist, Jia Shuxing's brush moved like a serpent. Looking again, amidst the mist, there were runes everywhere. Those runes were extremely strange, and they instantly scattered around Sumeru Joy Village. At that moment, Muse Hua also opened one hand. In his hand there was a green brush that was 2 feet and 7 inches long. Muse Hua looked like a page boy. However, at that moment, killing intent suddenly appeared in his eyes. Wherever the green brush fell, countless green lights rippled. Those green lights scattered everywhere in the fallen mortal realm. Muse Hua's expression was solemn. He didn't look like he was doodling, but like he was facing a great battle. Seeing Muse Hua's appearance, Jia Shuxing couldn't help but nod slightly. Muse Hua's years of teaching was not in vain. The scholar and page boy both used their brushes together and set up a heaven-concealing formation in the fallen mortal realm. Du Shuxing and Bai Yifeng had already entered Sumeru Joy Village. In the distance, they saw an ancient temple and a pink tall building. They knew that it was Minor Sumeru Temple and Joyous House. They were originally supposed to be in these two villages. However, at that moment they were actually overlapping. The ancient temple and the tall building were indistinct. They seemed to be two, but also seemed to be one. What was real and what was fake, what was real and what was fake. From the void of space, the female cultivator's laughter could be heard. That laughter was seductive, delicate and bashful, causing those who heard it to feel restless and blush. Ba! It was the voice of a monk. His voice was deep and coarse. However, it was intertwined with the female cultivator's voice, complementing each other. In the air, there was endless desire. A faint fragrance that could make people confused. Du Shuxing and Bai Yifeng both frowned. The fusion of Sumeru and Joyous House was a bit beyond their imagination. The bewitching monk was actually cultivating here. The female cultivator's voice was seductive. What a powerful little monk! Only after meeting the spring dew can one know the bliss of the world. The monk roared. Sumeru Temple and Joyous House had completely merged into one. Looking from afar, one moment it was Sumeru Temple, the next moment it was Joyous House. In the entire world, immortal energy surged and surged. Whoosh, whoosh, in the void of space, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The two worlds had completely merged into one. They were advancing. Du Shuxing's brows furrowed. He knew that he might have been a step too late. Looking again, Du Shuxing's hands formed a seal, and the space between his eyebrows directly burst out with 3 feet of green light. Whoosh, whoosh, what flew out from the green light was a bamboo scroll. The bamboo scroll fluttered in the wind, and the bamboo pieces struck against each other, like heavenly music. In an instant it made people's minds clear. Ancient Scroll of Hanqing. That was Du Shuxing's top-notch lianhua. At the same time, Du Shuxing shouted, "Righteous Qi, annals of history to suppress evil." Boom! In the void of space, thousands of bamboo scrolls turned into countless giant green swords, charging straight at Sumeru Temple and Joyous House with the momentum of lightning. Chapter 1136. Boom! Crack! Tens of thousands of rays of green light filled the sky, the fury of thunder, the giant soared like a dragon. Countless green rays rushed towards Meridian Temple and Joyous Pavilion before exploding violently. Meridian Temple and Joyous Pavilion swayed from afar. The surging immortal mist rolled upwards. Looking again, 2 figures flew out from the mist. Monk Yilong was half naked, his muscles like rocks, like a coiled dragon. His body was filled with strength and emitted a faint golden light. Joyous golden body. Scholar Du could not help but frown. This was because this joyous golden body was already comparable to the Dharmaraja golden body. Even if his green rays hit him just now, he would not be harmed at all. Peak of the Lotus Realm. This was definitely not within Scholar Du's expectations. Bai Yifeng also frowned. It seemed like second senior brother, and she were a little reckless this time. This monk's cultivation was definitely above Yi Mu and Yi Xiu. It could even be said that they were incomparable. Looking at the joyous female cultivator, she stood beside the monk, her eyes watery and her face flushed. She only had a thin veil draped over her body, her figure graceful and captivating. Ba! Monk Yilong put his palms together and chanted softly. Yo! Chun Lu threw a flirtatious look at Scholar Du, smiling coquettishly. Windmill Scholar, why? Master Yilong and I are having fun here. Could it be that you want to join in? If you can, I don't mind. Ah! Chun Lu covered her mouth and laughed, then glanced at Bai Yifeng. Miss Bai, you seem to be a virgin, You probably don't understand the bliss of this world. I can teach you. Chi. Master Ilong, are you willing? This humble monk is willing. Ilong stood at the side, glancing at Bai Feng. However, his eyes suddenly lit up and emitted a five-colored brilliance. Illusion. Boom, however, a layer of blue air wave appeared 3 feet in front of Bai Feng, directly reflecting the five-colored brilliance. The light in Ilong's eyes instantly retracted. When Chun Lu saw that, she couldn't help but chuckled. I heard that young Miss Bai's array skills are unparalleled, and today I've finally witnessed it for myself. However, the two of you have barged into the village and disturbed my and Grandmaster's dual cultivation. What exactly are your intentions? For the sake of the various realms, for the sake of peace in the mortal world. Scholar Du sneered. Sumeru, joy, everyone has to get rid of it. Today is your day of joy, but also the day of your death. Chun Lu smiled coquettishly. Scholar, you speak so righteously. However, I, Huanxi and Xumi, have been in fallen mortal town for tens of thousands of years. Why haven't you come to get rid of the evil? Now, it was all for his own benefit. The Windwheel lineage is indeed hypocritical. It's just that the time hasn't come yet. Now is the time. Scholar Du said. Amit Ba. Ilong chanted the name of Buddha. Hypocritical benevolence and hypocrisy are not as good as I, Sumeru, who is happy to ask my own heart and be at ease. Since all of you are here today, none of you can leave. That's right. The two of you, on the other hand, can be the best quality cauldrons for me and Grandmaster. Let us enjoy ourselves again. Finished speaking, Chun Lu's expression turned cold. Whoosh, then, she raised one hand, and an endless pink mist suddenly spread out from the surrounding void. Within the mist, there was an intoxicating fragrance, and sometimes there were even lewd sounds. Hallucinatory poison. The joyous lineage had always been proficient in the art of seduction and poison. Even high-level Lotus scholars had to keep a respectful distance from them and avoid them. The bewitching sound of the mist was specialized in attacking a person's soul. However, at this moment, Scholar Du and Bai Feng had a cold smile on their faces and were not affected at all. This was because they had Windwheel's secret treasures on them. Moreover, Windwheel's third senior brother, Hua Kei, was a miracle doctor, so naturally, he was also a poison warrior. If this kind of hallucinatory poison could bewitch the people of Windwheel, then they didn't deserve to be here. Second senior brother, leave this demoness to me. I'll leave the monk to you. All right. Finished speaking, Scholar Du went straight to Monk Ilong. Bai Feng, on the other hand, leaped into the air. Her body glowed with a blue light. That was her protective formation. In all the realms, there was almost no one who could cultivate the Tao of formations to the level that Bai Feng had. This was because whether it was Scholar Jia or Devil Lang, they could not use their bodies as a formation. Scholar Jia needed the help of the world-listening divine brush, while Devil Lang needed to deduce the forbidden diagram. Only Bai Feng herself was a formation. The formation moved with her, and the body was with the formation. Bai Feng's figure moved, and she charged directly at joyous Spring Dew. Spring Dew smiled coquettishly, but there was caution in her eyes. After all, Windwheel Bai Feng was famous. However, this dual cultivation had allowed her and Ilong to gain something. Now, she was also at the peak of the Lotus Warrior level, while Bai Feng had not yet stepped into the peak. Therefore, she was not afraid of Bai Feng. The bewitching sound of the mist just now was just a small trick of hers. Bai Feng reached out with one hand and went straight for Spring Dew's throat. This movement was very normal. However, all of Bai Feng's moves were actually feints. She was a formation master, and under normal circumstances, she would not choose to fight in close combat. She made a grabbing motion with one hand, and the void next to Spring Dew lit up with a mysterious light. Within the mysterious light, an arm identical to Bai Feng's actually reached out. The 5 fingers were like hooks, grabbing at her immortal heart. Spring Du's gaze froze. This was because she did not quite understand Bai Yifeng's move. It seemed like a formation, but also like a summoning technique. Thus, she took a slight step back. However, when she retreated, she actually felt like she was stepping on air. She did not know when, but there was actually a bottomless abyss behind her. It was so deep that she could not see the bottom, as if there was a hidden world. Rise. Spring Du was at the peak of the Lotus Warrior level. Her body fell slightly, and then she instinctively bounced up. Boom, however, her body suddenly collided with a ripple of the array formation. Fortunately, Spring Du opened her hands, and 2 curved blades were already in her hands. Open! Spring Du waved her blades, and finally split open the formation. However, her heart suddenly tightened. Because just now, she did not see Bai Yifeng make any formation moves at all. And she was already in Bai Yifeng's formation. At this moment, she finally realized that Bai Yifeng was looking at her coldly from afar. And she actually could not see Yilong and Du Shuxing, and the surroundings were also covered in a hazy fog. Welcome into the formation, Bai Yifeng said coldly. Spring Du raised her brows. She just entered the formation? How did she enter the formation? Bai Yifeng's formation was indeed strange. At this moment, Spring Du's eyes narrowed. Her pair of spring eyes rippled with ripples. Unfortunately, there was still fog within the ripples. She used her eye sorcery, but still could not see any clues. Demoness, if you want to leave the formation, it will be impossible. Bai Yifeng shouted delicately, call the wind. Whoosh, looking again, inside the formation, an evil wind suddenly rose. Spring Du's eyes narrowed. She felt that the black wind seemed to be surging from all directions, and also seemed to be surging from the soles of her feet. The bone-piercing chill made her body involuntarily tremble. Call the rain. Bai Yifeng's sorcery was activated again. Within the black wind and the cold rain, densely packed together, headed straight for Spring Du. The wind and rain could eat away at one's bones and soul. Spring Du raised her brows and then smiled coldly. The wind was not the wind, and the rain was not the rain. They were all formed from Bai Yifeng's immortal qi. When Spring Du thought of this, her body involuntarily moved. Joyful universe, dance of yin and yang. The 2 blades in her hands suddenly flew out, heading straight for Bai Yifeng in the distance. Chapter 1137. The joyful twin blades, one yin and one yang, black and white, complemented each other and could suppress heaven and earth. Chun Lu's twin blades carried the power of a peak lotus warrior. The wind and rain summoned by Bai Yifeng instantly collapsed in front of the blade wind. The twin blades drew out 2 crescent slashes, one black and one white, and went straight for Bai Yifeng. Boom, in the distance, Bai Yifeng did not dodge at all and was directly minced by the twin blades. Illusion! Chun Lu sneered. Looking again, another Bai Yifeng appeared in another direction and sneered at Chun Lu. You can't kill me, and you can't get out of my array. Is that so? Chun Lu winked. Unfortunately, you don't know the joy of dual cultivation, much less the power of it. That little monk gave me a lot of essence qi. Kakik, Chun Lu laughed. At the same time, she had already formed a seal with her hands. Whoosh, whoosh. The power of a peak lotus warrior suddenly spread out. Bai Yifeng could not help but frown. In terms of cultivation level, she was indeed at a disadvantage. If not for her mysterious array, she would not be able to fight against Chun Lu at all. The difference between a peak lotus warrior and a 9th-tier lotus warrior was huge. Most importantly, they did not expect that there would be 2 peak lotus warriors in Merry Merry Village. Joyful Chun Lu became serious, because she suddenly realized that if she was trapped in this array, it would indeed be the most disadvantageous situation. First, she did not know the battle situation between Yilong and Du Shuxing. Second, other powerful cultivators from the Windwheel sect could arrive at any time. Luo Fan Town was their territory. She and Ilong probably could not fight against the entire Windwheel sect, not to mention the Galaxy sect was also eyeing them. So, Chun Lu directly used her ultimate move. Whoosh, the joyful twin blades suddenly flew around. The entire array was filled with blade shadows, and wherever the blade light passed, many of Bai Yifeng's illusions were cut down. At the same time, Chun Lu's seal was completed. A faint golden light was emitted from the top of her head, and in the golden light, there was a bare-chested monk Ilong sitting cross-legged. Bai Yifeng frowned. She did not know what spell that was. Monk Shumi unexpectedly appeared above the head of this joyful female cultivator. Happy Spring Dew looked at Bai Yifeng and teased, "Little sister, you don't understand? This was called body fusion dual cultivation, where yin and yang interacted. Now that the little monk has entered my body, we are one person. It's a pity for your beauty. Actually, you should find someone to try it on." Shameless. Bai Yifeng was furious and ashamed at the same time. She really didn't understand how there could be such a woman in the infinite worlds. Moreover, the Joyous Joy lineage even had a Dharma Lotus venerable. Joyful Spring Dew's eyes were filled with lust, and then her killing intent abruptly appeared. "Kill!" she yelled out. Looking again, the dragon clone above her head suddenly pounced on Bai Yifeng. Actually, through the battle just now, Chun Lu had basically locked onto the location of Bai Yifeng's real body. After all, she was a peak-level Lotus warrior. Those apparitions from before had already been destroyed by her yin-yang dual blades. Roar! One of the dragon avatars let out a low roar and swung at Bai Yifeng. The immortal force that he swept up was extremely violent, causing the entire array to buzz and tremble. At the same time, Chun Lu's body once again emitted a strange fragrance. "Disperse!" With a wave of her hand, countless pink petals spread out from the hazy mist. The petals were very special, but the edges were as sharp as blades. It was an indiscriminate lotus technique attack. Several attacks came together. The Joyous Spring Dew was trying to break the formation. Looking again, Bai Yifeng's body moved. At the same time, her hand has already flown out. A long blue banner. The banner didn't sweep towards Ilong's clone but towards herself, who, just as the one dragon fist wind arrived, Bai Yifeng had already disappeared into the array formation. Happy Spring Dew couldn't help but be surprised. Looking again, her petals that filled the sky and her twin blades that were constantly spinning in the air did not launch any attack. At this moment, she also couldn't sense Bai Yifeng's presence at all. It was obvious that the long blue banner that Bai Yifeng took out had already covered her aura. Within the array, Bai Yifeng seemed to still be the king. However, Chun Lu's formation cultivation naturally couldn't be compared to Bai Yifeng's, but it wasn't easy for Bai Yifeng to use formations to kill Chun Lu. Chun Lu's almond-shaped eyes opened wide as she guarded left and right. But at this moment, the area beneath her feet instantly collapsed. The entire array seemed like it was collapsing. Large amounts of lotus power surged from all directions. World extermination! Bai Yifeng's cold voice spread out from within the array, but there was no sign of Bai Yifeng. The entire array was collapsing and being destroyed. Bai Yifeng's array was naturally a world. At this moment, Bai Yifeng wanted to destroy Chun Lu through the self-destruction method of the array. That was like locking a person in a stone house and then directly blowing up the stone house. "Humph!" Chun Lu sneered. Instantly, she retracted her sabers and moved her body. She turned into a ray of light and entered the dragon clone's mouth. The dragon clone put its palms together and stood motionlessly in the middle of the spell formation. However, his body shone with golden light, as if a golden Buddha had appeared in the world. Crack! Everything happened in an instant. The entire array suddenly collapsed. However, there seemed to be another array outside of the array. Because after it was destroyed, Du Shuxing and Monk Ilong were still nowhere to be seen. However, all of the energy dissipated the moment it came into contact with the dragon clone. Hu Bai Feng appeared. She held a long banner in her hand and frowned. Her self-destruction of the array formation did not harm the dragon clone in the slightest. Amit Ba. The dragon clone chanted the name of Buddha. Puffa then, he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of Buddhist chi. However, there was a pink light within the Buddhist chi. That pink light was none other than Chun Lu, who was wielding her sabers. This time it was extremely fast. Bai Feng was still in shock from not being able to harm the dragon clone at all. She saw that Chun Lu was already in front of her. Bai Feng waved the long banner in her hand. However, she could not escape in time. Boom, boom, she could only use the long banner to block Chun Lu's sabers. This time, Bai Feng was at a disadvantage. Be it in terms of cultivation level or power, she was at a disadvantage. Dust billowed and immortal energy flew. Chun Lu's sabers landed solidly on Bai Feng's long blue banner. Both divine weapons were Lianhua, but in terms of attack power, the sabers naturally had the upper hand. Looking again, Bai Feng was sent flying. Crack boom, in an instant, Bai Feng's formation began to shatter, and then rapidly crumbled away. That was the outermost layer of her array formation. While Bai Feng used her banner to support herself, she spat out blood and her face turned ashen white. A large portion of the damage from the array was transmitted to her body. Bai Feng, go and die. Happy Chun Lu laughed coldly. She stepped forward and slashed at Bai Feng with her sabers. Black and white light poured down. Bai Feng had no more strength to fight. Seventh junior sister. Scholar Du let out a cry. He wanted to charge at Bai Feng, but he long punched out a sky full of golden light and blocked his path. The flawless chapters of Yizong Samsara will continue to be updated on the mobile game bar. There will be no advertisements on the site. Please bookmark and recommend the mobile game bar. Those who like Yizong Samsara, please bookmark. Yizong Samsara hand bar updates the fastest. Chapter 1138. Du Shuxing and Bai Feng had been too careless. Previously, they had underestimated the battle power of Meru and Happiness. 2 Lotus Realm 9 Realm cultivators against 2 Peak Lotus Realm cultivators basically had no chance of winning, unless you were someone like Mo Lang, Sumo, or AMU. Because they seemed to be born with the ability to challenge those of a higher level. But they were the top figures of all the worlds. Although Du Shuxing and Bai Feng were also shocking figures, they were not at the level of the 3. Thus, they were in an absolutely passive position in this battle. Boom! Monk Elong blasted out golden light, forcing Du Shuxing, who wanted to save Bai Feng, to retreat. Happy Spring Dew's twin blades were already closing in on Bai Feng. Bai Feng could only reluctantly wave the long blue banner. Unfortunately, Bai Feng had used her body as a formation. After the formation was broken, she was already seriously injured. How could she completely control her Lianhua? Spring Dew's twin blades directly broke the blue banner. Blue light exploded, immortal chi scattered. The yin-yang twin blades pierced straight in. At this moment, Spring Dew's pair of watery peach blossom eyes had already turned into ice. My heart is actually ice cold. Although Happy Spring Dew's charm was unparalleled, they were all cruel and bloodthirsty. At this moment, Spring Dew no longer thought about the cauldron. She only wanted to kill Bai Feng. The twin blades slashed, both of them killing. Bai Feng's face was pale, she could not muster much strength. At this moment, she was extremely regretful and self-blaming. Coming to Meru and Happiness was her idea. Moreover, she only told second senior brother, she did not tell the other senior brothers. That was because everyone only had 24 hours, and everyone had their own matters to attend to. And second senior brother was going to the east fence, they were going the same way. She did not tell eldest senior brother. Otherwise, she would definitely be restricted by eldest senior brother. Second senior brother did not agree at first. because Du Shuxing did not want to complicate matters, in case it affected the final plan to save Sumo. However, Bai Yifeng said that she wanted to clear the last obstacle for her junior brother. The worst result would not affect Sumo's matter. Du Shuxing also felt that their chances of success were extremely high, so he agreed to Bai Yifeng's request. Killing the Mary and Sumru cultivators was the last thing they could do. Actually, based on the battle prowess of Li Jiangfeng, Ishio, and the others, Bai Yifeng and Du Shuxing would definitely be able to kill the 2 Mary and Sumru cultivators without a problem. However, they did not expect it to be 2 Peak Lotus warriors. That was not within their expectations. He had failed. In an instant, Bai Yifeng crushed a white pill in her mouth. That pill was a secret concoction of the wind wheel. After they returned to the windmill village this time, each of them had one. It was a soul-returning pill. It only had one effect, and that was, once the physical body of a windmill disciple collapsed, the windmill disciple would die. Its spirit could be sent back to the Windwheel Palace immediately. They would not perish. However, this divine soul could no longer possess a physical body. Unless they returned to White Mountain one day. Bai Yifeng no longer wished to return to White Mountain, but she knew that her divine soul could help little junior brother resurrect. Therefore, her physical body could be destroyed, but her divine soul could return. This could only be considered mending the pen after the sheep were lost. This was also the worst result that she and Du Shuxing had mentioned. Whoosh, Chun Lu's knife had arrived. Bai Yifeng looked at the 2 knives with cold and calm eyes. In fact, she was not afraid of death, as long as her divine soul could return. The knife light was dazzling, and the rest of her life would be dreamless. Bai Yifeng had no regrets. Chun Lu's face was already rippling with joy. Because she had killed the windmill disciple Bai Yifeng. Just this alone was enough for her to be proud. In front of the joyful monarch, she had definitely made a great contribution. However, at this moment, a shocking brilliance suddenly descended from the sky. The heaven hook was like the moon, and silver light came from the sky. Clang, clang. A heaven hook and the power of thousands of lotuses directly blocked in front of Bai Yifeng. The twin blades of the joyous spring dew solidly chopped down on the heaven hook. The silver light exploded, and the sky was full of broken stars. A figure directly swept behind Bai Yifeng, directly grabbed her waist, and then jumped back. He was wearing a bamboo hat and holding a fishing rod. Naturally, he was Mr. Ren Dongli. Mr. Ren. Bai Yifeng did not expect such an outcome and couldn't help but be slightly surprised. I'm late. Mr. Ren gently put down Bai Yifeng and said with a smile, Miss Bai, I didn't expect that we would meet again so soon. Do you still remember what you said before? This, Bai Yifeng's face turned red. She naturally remembered what they said before, but she didn't mean to meet again like this. Ha ha! Mr. Ren looked at Bai Yifeng and naturally would not be bothered about this. Instead, he turned to face joyful Spring Dew, and instantly, his face instantly turned as cold as ice. Dongli, Mr. Ren. Joyful Spring Dew's expression changed slightly. She knew that Mr. Ren was a White Mountain enforcer. However, she did not expect that Mr. Ren would appear here. I have never violated the White Mountain enforcer, but the Windwheel faction forced their way into my world. Joyful Spring Dew put away her coquettish attitude and said proudly, as a White Mountain enforcer, Mr. Ren should not have intervened in the battle between the villages. Even if he intervened, are you showing favoritism now? White Mountain enforcer. Mr. Ren said coldly, Joyful female cultivator, I don't care whether you violate the White Mountain enforcer or not. However, you have committed a capital crime here today, because the White Mountain enforcer is inferior to her. You've touched my reverse scale. What? Her? Joyful Spring Dew was stunned and could not help but look at the heavily injured Bai Yifeng. She did not know that Mr. Ren had always been in love with Bai Yifeng. Was a woman worth Mr. Ren going against the will of the White Mountain enforcer to attack? Whoosh! Mr. Wren did not want to talk nonsense with her anymore. With a shake of his fishing rod, the heaven hook went straight for Joyful Spring Dew. In the void, it was like a bolt of silver lightning that struck straight at her. Once Mr. Wren appeared, the situation immediately changed. Because he was a White Mountain enforcer, his combat power was definitely above that of Bai Yifeng. The heaven hook was like a moon, and it went straight for the two sabers. Joyful Spring Dew could only do her best to resist. However, it was impossible for the cultivators of Luo Fan Town to win against a White Mountain enforcer. Boom! The golden dragon above her head directly bombarded Mr. Wren with a heavy punch. However, the goddess observation lake had already appeared under Mr. Wren's feet. Domain. Absolute domain. Once the golden dragon was within 100 feet of Mr. Wren, it was directly entangled by the goddess observation lake. Even though he had the Buddha-light golden body, he was after all only a clone and could not break free at all. This time, Mr. Wren did not want to be polite at the beginning like what he did to Butcher. Instead, he attacked with an absolute killing move. Destroy. Mr. Wren grabbed at the air with one hand and shouted. Bang! The lake water surged up and crushed the dragon clone into pieces. Joyful Spring Dew's expression changed drastically. Mr. Wren was more tyrannical than she had imagined. Heavenly demon rejoice, captivate all living beings. Joyful Spring Dew's twin blades flew out of her hands and formed a seal at the same time. Looking again, her body moved, and 9 doppelgangers appeared around her. Each of them was wearing a light muslin and had an enchanting and charming posture. At the same time, they murmured in an unbearable voice. However, Mr. Wren smiled coldly. Joyful female cultivator, don't you know that this kind of technique is ineffective against White Mountain enforcer? Give me your life. Crack, crack. He swung his fishing rod like a long whip. The heaven hook split into 3 and actually turned into a flywheel that began to harvest the spring dew. Chapter 1139. Bang, bang. Wherever the heaven hook passed, everything turned into smoke. All of Spring Dew's clones disintegrated under Mr. Wren's heaven hook. Their charm had no effect on Mr. Wren. Spring Dew's expression changed drastically. She was prepared for Mr. Wren's power, but the current situation was beyond her imagination. Her power seemed to be no match for Mr. Wren. Ilong, let's go. Happy Spring Dew was no fool. There was no need for them to fight to the death with Du Shuxing and Mr. Wren. They could escape. Ilong and Du Shuxing were still in a stalemate. Originally, Ilong had the upper hand with his golden body of joy. However, he did not have the ability to defeat Mr. Wren. Therefore, escaping now was indeed a good choice. Avoid the sharp edge and try to fight again. However, Mr. Wren would not give her such a chance. The person he wanted to kill would not be able to escape from Luo Fan Town. Seal! Before Chun Lu's voice had even faded away, young Master Wren's spell was already completed. The air was filled with lake water. The lake water instantly froze into thousands of icicles. That was an indiscriminate attack. Everything within a few hundred miles was within the range of Mr. Wren's celestial technique. The lake water had its own spirituality. Moreover, they had Mr. Wren's support. Looking again, the entire air was sealed by Mr. Wren's icicles. Spring Dew was the first to bear the brunt. She was surrounded by layers of ice formed by the lake water. It was bone-piercing cold. Most importantly, she felt that she was imprisoned. Break! Spring Dew's twin blades were like wheels. Crack, crack, break, roar. Ilong was also trying his best to escape. Both of them were trapped by Mr. Wren's ice technique. However, they were both peak Lotus warriors and had the power to charge. As long as they could break out of the ice, their lives would not be in danger. The yin-yang twin blades instantly broke the ice that was hundreds of feet thick. Ilong's golden body was even more rampant. They were like angry dragons trapped at the bottom of the ice. The icicles in the air were shattering layer by layer. Du Shuxing raised his eyebrows. He waved his hand. The Hanqing ancient scroll had already flown back, and then suddenly dispersed. The bamboo slips shattered and turned into green swords that danced and spun in the icicles. It was also an indiscriminate attack. However, Chun Lu needed to avoid Scholar Du's flying sword, while Monk Yilong only needed to protect his head and immortal heart. Even if the other parts of his body were to be hit by the green sword, he would be fine. The golden body of Buddhism was indeed powerful. Happy Spring Dew and Yilong wanted to open up a path of blood. However, the corner of Mr. Ren's mouth curled up. It felt like victory was in their grasp. Mr. Ren was like a cat teasing a mouse. Chun Lu and Yilong thought that they still had a chance of survival, but in reality, when Mr. Ren appeared, their lives were already over. They had almost killed Bai Feng. There was no way they could survive in the hands of Mr. Ren. Demonic monk. Mr. Ren looked at everything and said in a low voice, "The Merriment and Sumeru sects cultivate evil techniques and bring chaos to the various worlds. They deserve to die. Today, I will eliminate them in the name of White Mountain." Mr. Ren's voice was like an oracle. It resounded in the entire Merriment Sumeru world. Actually, because Jia Shuxing had sealed the aura of the entire Merriment Sumeru world, the entire Luo Fan town would be able to hear Mr. Ren's voice. At that moment, Yilong and Chun Lu's expressions changed again. Because they had heard of the legends of the White Mountain Enforcer. Mr. Ren's words just now meant that he was going to use the power of White Mountain. Merge! Chun Lu and Yilong shouted at the same time. Their bodies broke through all obstacles and wanted to merge into one. However, that was no longer possible. Mr. Ren raised one hand. His palm lit up with a ray of white light. That ray of white light was different from all of Mr. Ren's powers. Because, in that white light there was a vague image of White Mountain. The misty White Mountain, that was the dream of countless cultivators. That was the power of White Mountain, the power of true technique. Destroy! Mr. Ren roared. His palm crackled. A ray of white light appeared in the sky above the Merriment Sumeru village. It poured down from the sky. Boom! Crack! That White Mountain thunderbolt struck Chun Lu and Yilong. Because they were preparing to merge. At the last moment, Joy wielded her twin blades. She tried to block the white thunderbolt. Monk Yilong's body emitted endless golden light. He hoped that he could use his golden body to withstand that thunderbolt. However, they were thinking too much. Although they were at the peak of the Lotus Realm, in front of the power of White Mountain, they were like mortals facing lightning from the sky. Boom! Smoke and dust rose and spiritual energy scattered. The yin-yang twin blades were broken by the power of White Mountain. Chun Lu did not even have the chance to cry out before she was turned into ashes by the power of White Mountain. Yilong shouted out loud. Then, all the golden light dissipated in the white light. Whoosh! Mr. Ren waved his arm, and the entire world was suddenly filled with wind. Then, all the spiritual energy and smoke were blown away. His expression was cold, and the murderous intent in his eyes gradually faded. "Thank you, Mr. Ren." Du Shuxing looked at the dissipating smoke, and said with some shame. He was Windmill's second senior brother. If something had happened to Bai Feng just now, it would be his fault as her elder brother. "It's nothing." Mr. Ren smiled faintly, then turned to look at Bai Feng. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine." Bai Feng had already eaten the Windmill Immortal Pill, and her complexion was slightly better. "Fortunately, you arrived in time. Otherwise, second senior brother and I might not have been able to return to Windmill. But you used the power of White Mountain just now. It will definitely bring you trouble, right? Jia Shuxing will deal with the aftermath. He should have concealed some of his aura. Within 3 days there shouldn't be any problems," Mr. Ren said. "In the end, I still implicated you." Bai Feng sighed. "Let's not talk about this. I'll send you back to Windmill now." Mr. Ren glanced at Bai Feng. "You don't seem to have much time left." There's less than 12 hours left. Bai Feng raised her head and said. Mr. Ren nodded. I'll send you back now. With that, Mr. Ren moved his mind, and the lake water under his feet rippled. A teleportation formation was formed. Du Shuxing and Bai Feng did not move, and the formation directly enveloped them. Whoosh, the water rippled, and time and space changed. Mr. Ren's formation led directly to Windmill. In the next moment, they had already appeared outside Windmill Village. I'll send you off here. Mr. Ren looked at the stone tablet of Windmill Village, and said calmly. He understood that Windmill was about to revive Sumo, and it was not appropriate for him to enter. Mr. Ren. Du Shuxing cupped his fists at Mr. Ren. Windmill is unable to repay your kindness today. Please accept my bow. With that, Du Shuxing bowed deeply at Mr. Ren. Brother Du, you're too polite. Mr. Ren smiled, and then said to Bai Feng, You guys go in. I'll be guarding outside Windmill. You can go back. Bai Feng said. It's okay. Mr. Ren smiled. I'm not going back to Observation Lake. I'm here to protect Windmill. If anyone really dares to mess around, I'll get rid of them. I can still use the power of White Mountain twice. In for a penny, in for a pound. You don't have to worry. Bai Feng looked at Mr. Ren and held his hand, but she really did not know what to say. Little junior sister, you can go in later. Du Shuxing said. No need. Bai Feng shook her head slowly, and then looked deeply at Mr. Ren. Take care. I'm a man of my words. If we meet again, I'll be with you. All right. Mr. Ren smiled warmly. Bai Feng let go of Mr. Ren's hand, and entered Windmill Village with second senior brother. She did not look back because she did not want Mr. Ren to see the tears on her face. Chapter 1140. Listening Tower. Jia Shuxing and Muse stared at the fallen mortal sand table with solemn expressions. Young master, Mr. Ren has made his move. Muse stared at Merriment Village and said. Yes. Jia Shuxing nodded. He must have made a move, otherwise he wouldn't have left Observation Lake. What should we do if White Mountain is punished? Muse asked. Jia Shuxing shook his head. He can't care so much anymore. Muse, you should understand that there are many things in this world that transcend life and death. Yes. Muse nodded heavily. In a few days, you and I may also fall. Jia Shuxing looked at Muse. Muse is willing to follow young master to death. Jia Shuxing smiled and nodded. After the sky changes, it will be another world. Let's hope that we can still meet in the new world. East Fence Grocery Store. After Boss Qian returned from East Fence, he told Lan Tong and Little Shirtu to close the store. Shopkeeper, what's going on? Lan Tong asked. Why did Butcher and Mr. Rin start fighting? Aren't they usually on good terms? Everyone has their own masters and their own destinies. Boss Qian sighed. Lan Tong and Little Shirtu looked at each other and didn't speak. There were some things that they weren't very clear about. However, they both thought of the black and white calculation that day. On White Mountain, there should be two different forces. Butcher and Mr. Rin might belong to different camps. Boss Qian's words could only make them think so. Boss Qian took out the falling mortal scale again, but this time, he didn't put down the weights. This was because many of the weights had disappeared. He only looked at the lianbua that carried the power of White Mountain. The people from East Fence Village had already entered the battlefield, so everything would speed up. Boss Qian frowned. Jia Shuxing's words were right. All businessmen were cunning. However, Boss Qian really didn't know what to do at this time. Finally, he gritted his teeth. You two look after the store. Boss Qian kept the falling mortal scale and instructed, I have to go out. If anyone comes, tell them that I'm in seclusion. With that, Boss Qian disappeared from the store. Windmill Village. Du Shuxing and Bai Feng returned to the Windwheel Palace. Bai Lai and eldest brother had stopped drinking. The other senior and junior brothers were already in front of the Windwheel Palace. They were the last to return. It seemed that everyone wanted to revive their junior brother as soon as possible, and their own matters were not the most important. Perhaps, to them, saving their little junior brother was the most important thing. They had only used half of the 24 hours. Seventh junior sister, you're injured? A look of surprise flashed across the eldest senior brother's face. We are going to Meru and Happiness Village to kill those two cultivators. Scholar Du said. Nonsense. Eldest senior brother said angrily, Did I give you time to cause trouble? I asked you to deal with your personal matters. I was wrong, eldest senior brother. Bai Yifeng lowered her head and said, I was the one who tortured second senior brother. We killed the Witch of Joy and Monk Shumi. However, Mr. Ren from the East Fence helped us. Scholar Du quickly gave a brief account of what had happened. Second brother, how could you make such a mistake? Eldest senior brother looked at Scholar Du and sighed. Fortunately, it was more daunting than dangerous. In fact, we should have left many things to little junior brother. We should have believed that he could solve everything, otherwise everything we did would have been meaningless. Scholar Du and Bai Yifeng lowered their heads and did not dare to speak. All right, Bai Lai said, it's good that you're back. It's rare that you only used half of the time. It seems that little Sue is the most important thing to you. Since everyone is back, eldest senior brother no longer bothered about the previous matter. His gaze slowly swept across the 8 junior brothers and sisters. Then let's start early. Everyone nodded in agreement. If you have anything else to say or do, you can tell old Bai. Eldest senior brother said, he will be alive and can help you. The Windwheel children shook their heads. You should understand that if our generation has no chance to return to White Mountain, all of us will be destroyed. All of us will perish. We will not be reincarnated. So, if you really have something to ask, don't be polite. The previous Windwheel 8th generation also had something to ask. Old Bai also did it for them. Eldest senior brother reminded everyone again. However, the Windwheel children still shook their heads. They really did not have anything to ask. Hee hee. Bai Lai smiled, but that smile was a little sad. Rare. The previous few generations did not have such a situation. I, old Bai, will toast you all one last jar of wine. With that said, Bai Lai stood up. He was still the same, dressed in a shabby white robe. Usually, Bai Lai was always laughing and joking, but at this moment, he was extremely solemn. He waved one hand, and a jar of wine appeared in his hand. However, he did not fill a bowl for each of the Windwheel children, but directly poured the jar of wine in front of the Windwheel Palace. The fragrance of the wine filled the air, but that was a way to toast to the dead. Windmill and the others didn't say anything, but their expressions were resolute. They would indeed die. Bang! Bai Lai released immortal power in his hand, and the jar of wine directly turned into powder. Hei Nong, it has begun, Bai Lai said. Eldest senior brother Hei Nong nodded heavily. Looking again, Bai Lai turned around and slowly knelt down towards the Windwheel Palace, then said in a clear voice, outside the Windwheel Palace in the White Bone Village, the monarch died 10,000 years without seeing his subjects. The world of mortals covers the eyes of the heavens, the sea of fragrant lotus will save the fated. This was the poem that Sumo had read back then. Servant Xiao Bai once again respectfully requests the monarch's obsession to open the palace. Bai Lai's voice was slightly trembling. Looking again, a drop of soul blood directly flew out from between Bai Lai's eyebrows. That drop of soul blood was like a blood-red agate, sparkling and translucent. As soon as it appeared, it directly resonated with the broken Windwheel Palace. Boom, boom, rumble, the entire Windwheel village was shaking. The originally dilapidated Windwheel Palace was instantly filled with endless divine light. It was as if a dead land had suddenly been revitalized and possessed endless power. Creak, creak, the doors of the Windwheel Palace slowly opened, as if a world that had been sealed for countless years was opening. At that moment, the Windwheel Masters, led by Hei Nong, could not help but reveal an excited expression. Because they had never entered the Windwheel Palace before. To them, the Windwheel Palace was sacred and mysterious. Hua, the divine light was like the sea, and the immortal Qi was like the tide. Once the doors of the Windwheel Palace opened, thousands of images actually appeared inside. From afar, it looked like a world, with endless multicolored light and various colors. In the immortal fog, a stalwart man wearing a large robe stood in the void, but his face was blurred. "Greetings to the monarch." Bai Lai deeply kowtowed. "Greetings to the monarch." The Windwheel Masters followed Bai Lai and kowtowed. They all knew that that was not the real Windwheel monarch, it was just an illusion of him. But they still kowtowed with all their heart. Born as a spirit, there must be a soul. Even an ant, it does not forget its heart. Not a puppet, not afraid of immortals and gods. The eternal moment, the moment of black and white. The oracle-like voice reverberated in the Windwheel Palace. When Bai Lai heard this, he could not help but let out a long sigh. Back then, the Windwheel monarch was demoted from White Mountain because of these few words. Chapter 1141. Born as a spirit, there must be a soul. Even as an ant, it does not forget its heart. Not as a puppet, it does not fear immortals and gods. Eternal moments, a moment of black and white. Windwheel Sage listened to Windwheel Monarch Lord's words, and their emotions surged. Because they instinctively understood the Windwheel Monarch Lord's teachings. They were muddle-headed, but they resonated with him. Monarch Lord once said that there are two great lotus venerables on White Mountain, one black and one white. It is said that they are fellow disciples. Bai Lai knelt in front of Windwheel Palace and spoke in a low voice, as if he was telling an ancient story. They control a true law realm together. There are 3,000 worlds in the true law realm. Of course, the 3,000 here is just an empty number. I'm afraid they themselves are not clear about the exact number. They control everything, they are the true gods of the true law realm. Living beings are just ants in their hearts, no matter if they are immortals or mortals. In the true law realm, they can do whatever they want. They do not ask about right or wrong, right or wrong. Most of the time, the destruction of worlds is really just a game to them. The two great Lotus Venerables said that right and wrong are relative. If you look down from the peak of the true law realm, you will realize that right and wrong are meaningless. Bai Lai smiled bitterly. But Monarch Lord doesn't think so. Of course, Monarch Lord is not saying that the two great Lotus Venerables are wrong. He thinks that if only two people in the entire true law realm can see the truth, then the truth is meaningless. He said that most of the time, living beings need a process of life, not a boundary. Everyone knows the result. After all, the foundation of the true law realm is the great 1,000 worlds, and the great 1,000 worlds are filled with living beings. They are the majority. Therefore, Monarch Lord thinks that the law of living beings should be the law. This has nothing to do with right or wrong, true or false. He thinks that White Mountain should consider living beings, and not raise puppets and play with them. Moreover, there must be worlds above the true law realm. To the Black and White Lotus Venerables, many worlds are ephemeral, but to the higher worlds, who can guarantee that the Black and White Lotus Venerables are not instantaneous venerables? White Mountain should be given to the various realms, not used to feed and slaughter. The various realms should not be White Mountain's pasture, and all living beings are not food. We need to give them the dignity of life. At this point, Bai Lai squinted his eyes and smiled. I think Wang Jun is right. However, his ideas were not accepted by the two great Lotus Venerables. Thus, Wang Jun was banished from White Mountain by the two Lotus Venerables. That day, he swore that the Windwheel faction would definitely return to White Mountain. He wants to play against the Black and White Lotus Venerables. For tens of thousands of years we've been working hard. Actually, we're not only fighting for Windmill, we're also fighting for the true law living beings' dignity. They or we will not be puppets." After Bai Lai finished speaking, Windmill and the others were silent. At this moment, it was as if their minds were connected to the Windwheel monarchs, White Bone Windwheel, experiencing thousands of predestined laws, Perfume Sea of Bitterness, experiencing tens of thousands of moments. Everything they did was worth it. Bai Lai led the Windwheel sons and kowtowed to the Windwheel monarch 3 times again. At this moment they were speechless, but it was better than thousands of times. "Wang Jun, I've brought the 9th generation of Windwheel. Among them, there will be a Dharma Lotus Venerable. Perhaps this time, our long-cherished wish will come true. May Wang Jun protect us and help us succeed." In fact, Bai Lai had said similar words before. However, he was very sincere every time. Whoosh, inside the Windwheel Palace, a celestial wind blew. Thus, Bai Lai formed a seal with his hand. In the entire Windwheel faction, only Bai Lai could form that seal. When they looked again, the celestial mist in the Windwheel Palace dissipated, and the illusion of the Tao monarch also disappeared. What appeared in front of everyone was an empty palace. It was extremely tall, and it was carved with jade. It was ancient and dignified, but it was also empty. On the high platform of the palace there was a large chair. Many runes were engraved on it. The chair was empty, as if it was waiting for someone. Ding ding dang dang. At that moment, the sound of a bell came from inside the palace. It was the Windwheel bell. It was hung on the beam of the palace. A spirit was wrapped around him. However, he was only a faint shadow, and he could not feel it at all. In fact, he was in a much better state than when Master Mu sent him back. The Windwheel Palace was somewhat nourishing for Sumo's spirit. This state made eldest senior brother and the others secretly heave a sigh of relief. The reason why they placed Sumo's spirit in the Windwheel Palace was mainly because they were afraid that his spirit would dissipate. "Everyone." Bai Lai looked at Sumo's spirit, but he said to the Windwheel sons, "Are you ready?" "Yes." Eldest senior brother answered on behalf of everyone, then turned to Hua Kei and said, "Third junior brother, the soul recovery pill." "Yes." Hua Kei opened his palm. The purple pill flew up from his palm and floated above the Windwheel bell. Then, except for Bai Lai, the other 8 people from Windmill suddenly made their move. They flew into the Windwheel Palace and sat cross-legged under the Windwheel bell. This was their first time entering the Windwheel Palace, and it would probably be their last. "With my spirit, I summon your spirit. With my body, I summon your body." Eldest senior brother Windwheel was the first to form a seal and said in a low voice. As eldest senior brother chanted the seal, white light gradually spread out from the top of his head. And in the white light, a spirit gradually appeared. It was He Nong himself. The spirit had left his body, and his spirit had separated from his body. Bai Lai watched this scene with a sorrowful expression. This was the price they had to pay to save Sumo. This was not a life for a life, but the 8 Windwheel sons had to die to save Sumo alone. This was Windwheel's choice. Whoosh, eldest senior brother's spirit flew directly to the side of the Windwheel bell. His physical body was still sitting cross-legged in the main hall, maintaining the state of forming hand seals. Next was second senior brother Du Shuxing. He also chanted the incantation, and his seal was slightly different from eldest senior brother's. But the process and result were the same as eldest senior brother's. The spirit and body separated. One flew to the side of the Windwheel bell, and the other sat cross-legged in the Windwheel Palace. Third senior brother Hua Kei, fourth senior brother Yun Jian, fifth senior brother Su Yaik, sixth senior brother Lu Tianzhan, seventh senior sister Bai Yifeng, and 8th senior brother Han Tian. Each of them had a different seal, but they had all separated their spirits and bodies. The 8 spirits surrounded the Windwheel bell, and the 8 bodies were in the 8 trigrams position in the palace. This in itself was a heaven-defying formation. "With my spirit, I summon your spirit. With my body, I summon your body. The voices of the 8 windwheel sons sounded at the same time. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The originally tinkling windwheel bells were now vibrating nonstop, as if they were a bell that was hanging in the main hall. Ancient windwheel, 9 returned to 1. Eldest senior brother Hainong shouted. Whoosh! In an instant, the 8 spirits in the void rushed into the windwheel bell. The 8 bodies in the palace rotated rapidly, and then gathered in the middle of the palace, merging into one. Chapter 1142. Ancient Windwheel, the 9 children returned to 1. Bai Lai's cheeks tightened as he looked at the scene in front of him with a complicated expression. He had been through 9 generations of Windwheel for tens of thousands of years. However, all of them had failed. The 7th generation of Windwheel had a white-robed guardian king, but it had failed. After so many experiences, Bai Lai thought that he had calmed down. However, when he saw the scene in front of him, he still had mixed feelings. If Sumo came back to life, it would mean that Windwheel had taken a solid step towards White Mountain. If not, then everything would be destroyed and he would have to start all over again. Bai Lai would not die. However, he did not want Windwheel to come back again. Sometimes, immortality was painful. Buzz, dang dang. The windwheel bell hanging at the top of the windwheel hall had turned into a big bell. If Sumo was here, she would be surprised. Because the bell looked like the Yin-Yang bell. The Yin-Yang bell was left behind by the white-robed guardian king. Unfortunately, the white-robed guardian king did not take the step towards White Mountain. Even his memory of White Mountain was erased. Buzz, the windwheel bell shook. At this time, the souls of eldest senior brother and the others had completely merged into the bell, and their appearances could no longer be seen. Inside the hall, the 8 corporeal bodies had already transformed into a body that radiated white light. However, his facial features were hidden in the light. Farewell, everyone. Bai Lai smiled bitterly and self-deprecatingly. However, he was looking forward to Sumo's rebirth and the road to White Mountain. Boss Qian left East Fence Village. In fact, his original goal was Windwheel Village, because he thought that Mr. Ren was going to Windwheel Village. After all, after Du Shuxing and Bai Yifeng came, Mr. Ren left Guanshi Lake. Boss Qian did not know that Du Shuxing and Bai Yifeng were going to Merriment Village. So, he walked in the direction of Windwheel Village. However, as he walked, he suddenly realized that something was wrong, because, according to his speed, he should have reached Windwheel long ago. However, there was no Windwheel Village in front of him. Huh! Boss Qian was surprised. Immediately after, he took out his black and white calculation. Crackle, crackle. Someone had set up a formation. Boss Qian actually got lost in Fallen Fan Town. In the entire Luo Fan Town, there were only 3 people who could do this: Scholar, Devil Lang, and Bai Yifeng. Boss Qian stopped in his tracks and narrowed his eyes. There was no aura of the forbidden painting in the surroundings, so this formation was definitely not set up by Mo Lang. What's more, according to the demonic man's usual temperament, if people don't offend me, I won't offend them. He most likely wouldn't set up a formation that covered the entire Luo Fan Town. Not even Bai Yifeng. The main mission of the Windwheel lineage was to allow Sumo to be reborn. They probably wouldn't use any extra power to set up such a huge formation. Scholar. Boss Qian was certain. With the world-listening divine brush in hand and the power of White Mountain, Boss Qian believed that Scholar was better than Mo Lang and Bai Yifeng in terms of array formations. Jia Shuxing seemed to be an idle person, and he had the ability and energy to set up this formation. But why did he want to set up this formation? Boss Qian looked at the black and white abacus in his hand and frowned slightly. Soon, he had a deduction. Sumo was about to be reborn, and Jia Shuxing was helping the Windwheel lineage conceal its aura. This was probably the reason why Du Shuxing and Bai Yifeng came to the Windwheel lineage. Boss Qian linked his deductions together. However, he did not think in the direction of Meru and Joy. Thus, Boss Chien changed his direction with the black and white abacus in his hand. He wanted to go to Meru village, because Meru and Meru were about to merge into one. Dharmaraja was descending. Boss Chien's lips curled up. He was looking forward to that moment. That way, it wouldn't be long before he left Luofen town. The black and white abacus crackled. Boss Chien held the abacus in one hand and calculated continuously with the other. He was constantly calculating the direction and then went straight in the direction of Meru and Joy. However, he miscalculated. After a few steps, he did not see Meru and Joy, but a dark and gloomy world. Boss Chien was stunned. This is Emoshan village? Because, at the entrance of that world, there was a stone tablet, Emoshan village. Boss Chien did not expect to walk to the entrance of Emoshan village. However, the current Emoshan village seemed to be different from usual. It was undergoing some sort of change. Boss Chien stood outside Emoshan village, neither entering nor leaving. He was thinking and calculating. Boss Chien, long time no see. But at this moment, a voice came from Emoshan village. Following that voice, a black figure walked out of Emoshan village. It was really a black figure. If he had not deliberately manifested, Boss Chien probably would not have noticed his existence. Boss Chien was stunned. Who are you? Haha. The black figure laughed. Boss Chien, you really have a short memory. As he spoke, the black shadow raised his hand and a black lotus appeared in his palm. However, it was not a real lotus, it was just a shadow. Black lotus? When Boss Chien saw it, he immediately sneered. A shadow dares to play tricks. Black Lotus is already the Dharma Lotus King, why would he appear here? Moreover, even if you are Black Lotus, what does it have to do with me? The black figure nodded and smiled. Boss Chien, you are indeed a businessman, your words are watertight. Be careful, but what do you think this is? With that, the black figure raised his other arm. In his hand, there was a simple and unadorned token. The token looked extremely smooth, there were mountains, rivers and people on it, but the background was a black mountain. At this moment, if other cultivators saw this token, their expressions would definitely change. Because it looked very much like a white mountain token, but it was completely black. Black mountain token. When Boss Chien saw the token, his gaze instantly froze. Boss Chien, please enter the village to talk. The black figure made a gesture of invitation. This time, Boss Chien did not hesitate and directly entered the village. Immediately, the black figure set up a barrier. Subordinate greets Great Lotus Venerable Envoy. After entering the village, Boss Chien actually bowed deeply towards the black figure. Hee. The black figure laughed. I am a shadow of Black Lotus. All these years, I have never left Mozhan village. However, we have never met. These years, Boss Chien has worked hard. We are all working for Great Lotus Venerable. How is it hard? Boss Chien said solemnly. However, the current situation does not seem to be in our favor. Why do you say that? The black figure asked. There are a total of 3 East Border enforcers. Other than me, Mr. Rin and Jia Shuxing seem to be unwilling to be controlled by White Mountain. Currently, Luofen town has already been set up with a large formation. I just got lost and entered Mozhan village by mistake. They seem to be making a big move. Hee. The black figure laughed. Boss Chien, don't worry. Great Lotus Venerable Black Robe has his own arrangement. That Mr. Rin and Jia Shuxing are both chosen by Great Lotus Venerable White Robe. Even if they are not controlled, it has nothing to do with us. What's more, look. With that, the black figure pointed at the center of Mozhan village. Boss Chien looked up. In the center of Mozhan village was a black mountain peak. Its name was Mozhan. The surroundings of Mozhan village were filled with black soul grass. At this moment, on top of Mozhan village, there was actually an identical black mountain peak. Actually, that was the Heartless Peak. Black Mountain. However, when Boss Chien looked at the peak of Mozhan village, he could not help but be dumbfounded and actually blurted out those two words. Chapter 1143. Black Mountain, in Boss Chien's words, was not just a black mountain, but an existence with a special meaning, because it referred to the back of White Mountain, and fallen mortal town would always see the front of White Mountain. That mountain, yin and yang faced each other, black and white faced each other. However, there were too few cultivators who knew about the back of White Mountain in fallen mortal town. Coincidentally, Boss Chien was one of them. Boss Chien looked at the two mountain peaks that had not completely overlapped, and said in extreme shock, "That is Black Mountain?" The Black Shadow laughed. "Boss Chien, no need to be shocked. My true body will descend very soon. After the sky changes, it's hard to say what color the mountain will be. However, Black-Cloved Great Lotus Venerable's loyal servant will definitely return to White Mountain. I believe in this." The Black Shadow's words seemed to be directed at Boss Chien, but also seemed to be directed at himself. "Black-Cloved is forever. I pledge my life to follow you." Boss Chien bowed deeply in the direction of Black Mountain, then asked the Black Shadow, "May I ask when your Dharmaraja true body will descend?" "I'm waiting for my friends. As long as one of them comes, I will descend. At that time, fallen mortal town will no longer exist. It will transform into the final power to open the door to the true method." The Black Shadow's voice was somewhat sinister. "As long as Shumi and happiness fuse, my friends will descend. Unfortunately, I can't see the degree of their fusion right now." "I'll go take a look," Boss Chien said. "Those two villages each have a cultivator." The Black Shadow continued, "After Dharmaraja descends, they can be of help to us." "I understand." Boss Chien nodded. Whoosh! The Black Shadow beckoned with one hand, directly capturing a ball of black soul grass. "Boss Chien, you said that there is already a large formation covering the sky outside the village. This ball of black soul grass is for you. It should be able to guide you to Shumi and Happiness Village." "Thank you, Great Lotus Venerable Envoy." Boss Chien bowed slightly, then did not say anything else. He took a deep look at the distant White Mountain, then left Emo Shan Village. Outside Emo Shan Village, the formation was still there. Boss Chien left Emo Shan Village, holding that ball of black soul grass in his hand. It was truly a magical grass. Now that it had become a black ball in Boss Chien's hand, it was emitting a bright white light. The white light could only illuminate a distance of 100 feet, but it was enough to prevent Boss Chien from getting lost. Thus, Boss Chien carried the ink soul grass and, like a black lantern, walked towards Shumi village. However, he did not notice that there were runes following his feet. Outside Joyous and Meru village, there was a fog. The mist covered up all the auras of this fused world. At this moment, Boss Chien had already arrived outside the village with the ink soul grass lamp. However, he still couldn't see anything inside. Boss Chien could not help but frown. This was because he felt that there was something strange about Joy and Sumi's aura. It was an indescribable and inexplicable feeling. Outside the village, the stone tablets of Joy and Sumeru were already standing side by side. It had to be said that the guardian kings behind these two villages possessed great wisdom. Such a fusion required trust and determination from both sides. Of course, the prerequisite was that they each had their own law emperor, otherwise they would lose the opportunity for a cultivator to become a law emperor. This was also the reason why the other villages in Luo Fan Town would not choose to merge together. They needed a guardian king. Boss Chien looked at the abacus in his hand and felt that there seemed to be no danger in the village. Thus, with the ink soul grass in his hand, he stepped over the boundary stone. He was an enforcer of White Mountain. It was easy for him to enter Joyous and Meru villages, and he did not encounter any obstruction. The fog was hazy and the cold wind blew. After Boss Chien entered Joyous and Meru villages, he actually felt a trace of coldness. He spread out his divine sense, but did not immediately sense the auras of cultivators in the two villages that had fused. Boss Chien frowned, and then he cast his gaze towards the center of the village. There was actually the Joyous House and Sumru Temple that were already riddled with holes. There was a battle here. East Fence Qianyun is here. May I ask if there are any fellow Taoists here? Boss Qian's voice spread out. However, the entire village was empty. Boss Qian waved his hand. Whoosh, a mirror image appeared in the void. In the mirror image, there were many figures, and the scene of a battle could be heard, but there was no sound. The previous scenes were all reflected in the mirror image. Boss Qian's expression kept changing. Mr. Ren, how dare you? Boss Chien thought that Mr. Ren was already unwilling to listen to White Mountain's orders, but he definitely did not expect that Mr. Ren would really dare to use the power of White Mountain to kill the two cultivators of Joyous and Meru temples. At this moment, he finally understood why the entire fallen mortal town's grand formation was set up. Jia Shuxing's grand formation was to conceal the aura here. Because the two worlds of Joyous and Meru had already fused, Law Emperors could descend here. Thinking of this, Boss Chien immediately turned around. He had to tell this information to Black Lotus Shadow Body. Once Law Emperors could descend here, then Black Lotus could also descend. After the two Law Emperors appeared, Fallen Mortal Town would definitely be Black Lotus World. The door of truth could then be opened. Boss Chien's blood was boiling. Because he should be on the right side. So, he immediately turned around. However, when he turned around, he saw a black-robed man standing not far behind him. The black-robed man's expression was cold as he stared at Boss Chien. Devil darling! Boss Chien's expression changed. He had been careful along the way, and he had the black and white calculations in hand. How could anyone know that he had come here? Boss Chien, it's been a long time. Devil Darling said coldly. I didn't expect you to be from Black Lotus? This really surprised me. Black Lotus? Boss Chien calmed down and said in a disdainful tone, Fellow Taoist Devil Darling, I'm the East Border Enforcer. Today, on a whim, I felt that Meru Joyous had some unusual movements, so I specially came to patrol. How did you become from Black Lotus? Devil Darling sneered. Boss Chien, do you think that no one knows? Look at what's under your feet. Boss Chien lowered his head. Only then did he realize that under his feet there were actually runes. Forbidden map? Boss Chien was stunned, but he did not know how these forbidden maps were attached to his feet. Outside Mo Mountain Village, there are all forbidden maps that I set up. Devil Darling said, those forbidden maps directly connect to Galaxy Village. So, when Boss Chien just stepped into Mo Mountain Village, I knew. Can't I come here after patrolling Mo Mountain Village? Boss Chien argued. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he did not want to fight with Devil Darling. At this moment, he only wanted to quickly spread the news. Boss Chien, Devil Darling looked at Boss Chien deeply. If it's as you said, then it's fine. Today, as long as you do not leave this place, I will accompany Boss Chien to drink here. How about that? Drink another day. I still have things to do. I hope that fellow Taoist Devil Darling will not stop me. Boss Chien said. Devil Darling shook his head. Since Boss Chien said so, then you cannot leave today. Hearing this, Boss Chien's expression suddenly turned cold. Devil Darling, I do not want to fight with you because we appreciate each other. Do you really think that you can keep me here? Don't forget, I'm the White Mountain Enforcer. Killing you is also fine. Whoosh, Boss Chien calculated the black and white in his hands. Above it, black and white light suddenly soared. Devil Darling's gaze also turned cold. What a coincidence. Killing a White Mountain Enforcer is exactly what I, Devil Darling, wish. Boss Chien, today, I will use your blood as the true sacrifice for the heavenly change. Whoosh, Devil Darling's mind moved, and the mortal coffin was already above his head. Chapter 1144. Whoosh, whoosh. The black and white abacus in Boss Qian's hand first rang in unison, then the beads began to ring crisply. The black and white light directly protected Boss Qian. The calculation of black and white could push the heaven and earth. As one of the 3 Eastern hedge law enforcers of Luo Fan Town, Boss Qian naturally had his own strength. At this moment, a cold light flashed in his eyes. This kind of gaze was definitely not seen on the usually amiable Boss Qian. At this moment, he was no longer a businessman, but a killer. Chi, Boss Qian had a thought. The 18 beads of black and white abacus flew out. 9 black and 9 white, they attacked Mo Lang from different directions. As soon as he made his move, Boss Qian used his top-grade lotus treasure. Because he knew that there was no need to test the Devil Prince, he immediately went all out. Mo Lang had the same idea, so his first move was the mortal coffin, who the 18 beads contained boundless lotus energy. However, Mo Lang's heart moved. The mortal coffin above his head began to spin, gray light shot straight into the sky. Puff, puff, as the mortal coffin spun, the 18 beads were all struck down by its gray light and turned to dust. Huh! Boss Qian frowned. He had seen the power of the mortal coffin before. After all, the Devil Lang had used it to kill Li Jiangfeng that day. However, the power of the mortal coffin still exceeded his expectations. Suppress! Devil Lang roared as the mortal coffin charged towards Boss Qian. At this moment, Boss Qian had already made his move. This time, he did not take out the beads separately, but the entire abacus. Bang! The mortal coffin and the abacus collided in the void. Whoosh! In the void, there were tens of thousands of rays of light, and countless broken star fragments danced in the air. That was the shattering of the black and white calculations. As the 2 lianbua collided, the mortal coffin gained the upper hand. However, the mortal coffin's gray glow dimmed significantly. Disperse! Boss Qian didn't care about the broken black and white calculations, because at this point, the destruction of the lianbua was no longer important. The most important thing was to stay alive. Boss Qian had a thought. The fragments of the black and white calculations scattered in the void suddenly turned into black and white smoke. The black and white smoke instantly formed a formation. Boss Qian's figure actually disappeared in the smoke. His goal was not to kill the Devil Lang, but to escape. Currently, to Boss Qian, staying alive and passing on information was the most important thing. As long as the news that a law emperor could descend here spread, it would be fine. Therefore, the moment he used the black and white calculation, he had already thought of a way out. The mortal coffin's strength had indeed won against the black and white schemes. Moreover, Boss Qian had intentionally allowed the black and white schemes to explode. The black and white smoke became his cover. The corner of Mo Lang's mouth twitched coldly. Immediately, the lid of the mortal coffin began to open. The endless suction force directly swallowed the black and white smoke in the void. In an instant, the sky was clear and the smoke was gone. Boss Qian did not appear. It was as if he had really disappeared. However, Mo Lang's expression was cold and there was disdain in his eyes. He was not worried at all. A moment later, Boss Qian suddenly staggered and appeared not far from Mo Lang. Boss Qian's expression did not look too good. This was because he had underestimated Mo Lang's forbidden painting. Just now, he had used the black and white smoke to take a step out of the village, but he was directly teleported back by Mo Lang's forbidden painting. Boss Qian, you don't have to think about it anymore. Mo Lang sneered. The entire area outside Merry Meridian Village has already been surrounded by my forbidden painting. If you want to leave, you can only kill me. Boss Qian looked at Mo Lang with shock and anger. Mo Lang, you are a genius. In all the realms, there are very few who can compare to you in terms of talent. Boss Qian looked somewhat pained. Unfortunately, you've narrowed your path. Ha ha. Mo Lang could not help but laugh when he heard this. In all the realms, if I, Mo Lang, narrow my path, then, wouldn't the other cultivators have nowhere to go? This sentence was actually not wrong. Mo Lang had always walked his own path. This was something that even Amu and Sumo could not compare to, because Mo Lang only cared about his own heart. Arrogant to the extreme, Boss Chien said angrily, "Today, I will let you know that there is always someone better." When he looked again, Boss Chien slapped his forehead with one hand. Whoosh, a scale appeared directly above his head. The scale was antique, neither gold nor jade. In the center of the scale, there was a thin and long needle. The two plates of the scale were in the shape of lotus flowers. At this moment, there was nothing on the plate. The needle stopped at the center. Its background was a white mountain. Mo Lang's eyes narrowed. He had never heard of this lianhua. However, with the white mountain as its background, it was naturally not an ordinary item. Fallen mortal scale. Boss Chien looked coldly at Mo Lang. This is the treasure of the White Mountain. It can determine life and death. Today, let it determine our life and death. As he spoke, Boss Chien's body leaped and actually landed on the side of the scale. Whoosh, whoosh, instantly, Mo Lang felt the world around him suddenly change. For some reason, he actually landed on the other plate of the scale. Mo Lang could not help but frown. Boss Chien was indeed quite capable. When the two of them landed, the needle in the center of the scale did not move. This meant that the probability of their life and death was exactly the same, 50-50th. Mo Lang, life and death are up to fate. Boss Chien sneered. Now our lives and deaths are split equally. However, you are now in my domain. So die. Boom, hua. Boss Chien directly took out a golden counterweight from his bosom. Then, with a shake of his hand, the golden counterweight directly attacked Mo Lang like a heavenly hammer. Seeing this, Mo Lang immediately activated the mortal coffin. Once the coffin lid was opened, it wanted to directly collect the golden light. However, the corner of Boss Chien's mouth curved. "Scatter!" he roared. Just as the counterweight was about to be collected by the demon coffin, it suddenly exploded like fireworks, directly turning into thousands of golden counterweights. The stars fell like rain, covering Mo Lang. That was an indiscriminate attack. Mo Lang raised his eyebrows. With the mortal coffin protecting him, he hurriedly retreated. However, at this moment, he suddenly realized that no matter how he dodged, he was covered by those counterweights. As it turned out, his body was in the plate, and no matter what, he could not escape. Domain. Mo Lang thought of Boss Chien's words just now in the legend of the White Mountain Enforcer's domain. This falling mortal scale was Boss Chien's domain. He trapped Boss Chien in Merry Summer Village, so Boss Chien trapped him in his own domain. Objectively speaking, Boss Chien's response could be considered a powerful counterattack. Within his domain, Boss Chien was indeed a king. This could be seen from when Mr. Rin killed Butcher, Joy, and Monk Ilong. The White Mountain Enforcers all had their own domain. Mo Lang could not dodge, but it was basically impossible to kill Mo Lang in an instant. Bang, bang, Mo Lang's body suddenly lit up with the light of the forbidden map. Those counterweights directly turned into powder within 30 feet of him. However, Mo Lang's forbidden map also dimmed a lot. Humph! Boss Chien's eyes lit up. Immediately, he reached out with one hand. The needle in the middle of the falling mortal scale was already in his hand, and instantly turned into a white longsword. Falling mortal sword, White Mountain power. Kill! Boss Chien roared. Chapter 1145. The shocking white light broke through the sky. That sword was imbued with the power of White Mountain. Boss Chien finally used his trump card. This sword could kill almost any cultivator in Fallen Mortal Town. The shadow of White Mountain could be faintly seen within the white sword light. Even a Lotus warrior at the peak of the 9th tier would become a ghost under his sword. That day, Mr. Rin used the power of White Mountain to kill Chun Lu and Ilong. Whoosh, the white sword broke through the sky. The entire village seemed to have become two different worlds under the sword light. Even Mo Lang's expression changed slightly at this kind of power. The Eastern Border enforcers lived up to their reputation. Any one of them had the power to suppress fallen mortal. However, since Mo Lang dared to come alone, he must have made full preparations. This power of White Mountain was naturally within his expectations. Whoosh, the moment Boss Qian's fallen mortal sword flew over. Mo Lang had already formed a seal with his hand. It was very rare for Mo Lang to form seals now, because he didn't need it. However, this time, Mo Lang was extremely serious and quickly formed a seal. Boom, in an instant, the mortal coffin opened and a ray of gray light flew out. That ray of light didn't belong to the mortal coffin. It only existed in the mortal coffin. The aura of the gray light was completely different from the mortal coffin. They were only similar in color. Once the gray light appeared, the entire mortal coffin trembled slightly. It seemed like even this top-grade Lianhua couldn't withstand the power of the gray light. That was? Boss Qian was already certain of defeating Mo Lang after using the power of White Mountain. Because the power of White Mountain was the greatest law in fallen mortal town. It was the power bestowed by White Mountain. This power existed to intimidate fallen mortal town. Unless a cultivator from the true law realm or the Dharma Lotus Venerable appeared, no cultivator in the infinite worlds could resist the power of White Mountain. However, Mo Lang surprised Boss Qian. Because Mo Lang's mortal coffin also released a ray of White Mountain's power. However, this ray of White Mountain's power seemed to have been specially refined. It actually had Mo Lang's aura. This? No matter what, Boss Qian didn't expect that Mo Lang also had what he had, and that he had already refined that aura into something that belonged to him. This meant that Mo Lang's Tao power was no longer a consumable, but an existence equivalent to a magic treasure. Boom, crack. So everything happened in an instant. The power of White Mountain that was added to Boss Qian's fallen mortal sword was directly defeated by Mo Lang's gray light. Smoke and dust filled the air, and the entire Merriment Meridian shook. If it wasn't a great world right now, it wouldn't be able to withstand such a showdown of power. At the same time, the fallen mortal sword broke into two. In the blink of an eye, Mo Lang didn't give Boss Qian any chance. He rushed forward, and borrowing the power of the gray White Mountain, he directly rushed out of the plate and landed in front of Boss Qian. He broke through Boss Qian's domain. Suppress. The mortal coffin descended from the sky and covered Boss Qian. With his domain broken, Boss Qian's face was ashen. He did not understand why Mo Lang also had the power of White Mountain. Was he the White Mountain law enforcer? Unfortunately, no one would give him an answer. Forbidden diagram light shone everywhere. It was impossible for Boss Qian to escape. Multiple powers had already imprisoned Boss Qian. The mortal coffin opened and directly swallowed Boss Qian. No. At the last moment, Boss Qian was indignant and wanted to use the power of White Mountain. However, that was impossible. Inside the mortal coffin, there was a world of its own. He only felt endless darkness engulf him in an instant, and then he lost all consciousness. Death. Boss Qian's soul was extinguished. Crack, crack. Once Boss Qian died, the fallen mortal scale began to collapse. Because that was his natal magic treasure. At this moment, everything was gone with the wind. No matter how strong an expert was, after they died, they would be gone without a trace. Mo Lang looked at everything with a cold expression. Then, he put away the mortal coffin. Turning around, Mo Lang disappeared from the village. Star River Village, Illusionary Mansion. Wang Shui and Xin Ming were accompanying White Lotus Boy to eat and drink to their heart's content. In just a few days, White Lotus Boy seemed to have gained weight. His round face was full of meat. Junior sister Shui, Can your grandfather handle it himself? White Lotus Boy was a little full. He patted his stomach and said, "Why don't we go out and take a look?" "Don't worry," Wang Shui said proudly. "My grandfather is the second genius in all the realms. The power of White Mountain that you gave him has long been refined by him, and he can use it as he pleases. Unless the true body of a Law King comes, no one in Fallen Mortal Town can do anything to him. As long as a Law King comes to Fallen Mortal Town, you will be the first to notice it." And White Lotus Boy nodded. "That's true. If any Law King comes, I will notice it and then I will kill him. I really miss the taste of lotus seed soup. With the Law King Lotus Heart, I can make it for you," Shen Ming said from the side. "If you can get a complete lotus heart, I can fry it for you. It will be more fragrant." "Really?" White Lotus Boy's eyes widened. "Of course." Shen Ming patted his chest. At this moment, if vast universe's Law Kings heard their conversation, they would probably want to join forces to kill Shen Ming and White Lotus Boy. The lotus heart that they cultivated for countless years actually became food in their mouth. Then let's really make one to taste. White Lotus Boy's throat moved, then he suddenly turned to Wang Shui and said, "Oh right. Junior Sister Shui, you just said that Devil Lang is the second genius in all the realms. Then who is the first?" "Of course it is my father," Wang Shui said proudly. "Then where is your father?" White Lotus Boy said. "My father is sealed by the Black Lotus? He should be in Heartless Peak. My grandfather said that he is in Mozhan village." Wang Shui let out a breath. "Master promised to help me save my father. Unfortunately, the time is not ripe yet." Black Lotus Seal. White Lotus Boy heard and couldn't help but sneer. "What is the Black Lotus?" "That year, he was defeated by me and then directly sent into the samsara. Junior Sister Shui, don't worry. As long as the Black Lotus descends, I will be the first to help you break the seal and save your father." Wang Shui heard and hurriedly laughed. "Senior Brother Boy, I know you love me. At that time, I will rely on Senior Brother Boy." "Don't worry. No problem," White Lotus Boy said. Wang Shui smiled and nodded. However, she didn't have any confidence in her heart, because she knew that behind the Black Lotus must be Black Robe Great Lotus God. Otherwise, how could a Black Lotus make her master have scruples? Could the power of the Three Realms Galaxy save Amu? Wang Shui wasn't sure. However, she would gather all the power that could be gathered. Wang Shui glanced in the direction of Mozhan village, her expression slightly cold. On White Mountain. In the cave dwelling, White Robe Great Lotus God was originally sitting cross-legged, but the moment Boss Qian died, he slowly opened his eyes. There was a hint of a smile in his eyes. "Junior brother, one of your pieces has been removed," White Robe Great Lotus God said to himself. "I don't know if it was White Lotus's good deed, but I am ahead in this chess game." At the same moment, a cold snort came from another cave dwelling. Chapter 1146. Within Mo Mountain Village. The black figure waited for a long time, but Boss Qian never returned. Thus, he had an ominous premonition. Logically speaking, Boss Qian was the White Mountain enforcer, so there shouldn't be any problems. But now that Fallen Mortal Town was in chaos, everything was hard to say. Otherwise, there was no reason for Boss Qian not to return. The black figure looked at the two overlapping Black Mountain peaks in the distance. His real body couldn't descend yet, and he was a Black Shadow clone. He couldn't go more than 3 miles away from Mo Mountain Village, so he couldn't do much. Whoosh! The Black Shadow clone could only sweep up a ball of ink soul grass and send it out of the village. As for whether that ball of ink soul grass could return, it depended on luck. After all, even Boss Qian didn't return. And 10 miles away from Mo Mountain Village, that ball of ink soul grass was melted by the forbidden map set up by Mo Lang. Now, there were two great formations outside Mo Mountain Village. It was as good as being locked. On Heartless Peak, Black Lotus sat cross-legged on Heartless. His Heartless Peak was already at the peak of Mo Mountain. Now, he only had to wait for Happy Girl or Love Monk to descend. Dharmaraja descend. Black Lotus knew very well what that meant, invincible in fallen mortal town. At this moment, he was full of ambition. But at this moment, a voice came from the peak of Heartless Peak. Black Lotus, my spy in fallen mortal town has actually fallen. Quickly send Black Cat down to scout the situation. If there are any abnormalities, you have to descend quickly. Black Lotus Heartless Peak was shocked. Disciple obeys. Black Lotus responded, then he patted Black Cat beside him. Black Cat, go and return quickly, if there's danger, don't fight. Yes, Master. The black catbird spoke human language, then with a flap of its wings, it rushed down Heartless Peak. Windmill Village, Windmill Palace. Bailai sat alone outside Windmill Palace. At this moment, his figure was somewhat lonely, because he was the only one left in the huge Windmill Village. This was already the 9th time. The first 8 times, Bailai had to endure endless sorrow. This time, would it be a repeat of the previous 8 times? 12 hours had passed since Windmill Hei Nong and the others had started the formation. A shadow had already appeared on the windwheel bell above the Windwheel Palace. That was because Sumo's soul had already manifested, but it had yet to completely solidify. As long as her soul solidified, it meant that Sumo's soul had returned. After swallowing the soul recovery pill, Sumo would be reborn. Taking a step back, even if Sumo's physical body was not completed in the end, he could think of other ways. As long as the soul existed, the physical body could be refined again. However, at this time, Sumo's physical body was also forming. The bodies of the 8 sons of Windmill had completely fused into one person. However, his entire body was covered in white light, and his facial features could not be seen clearly. He would be Sumo's body. Everything was going smoothly. Little Su, we can meet in 24 hours. Bailai sighed. Sumo had returned, but it was a pity that the other 8 sons of Windmill could not return. 8 sons in exchange for 1 son, one could not have the best of both worlds. Perhaps this was the fate of the Windmill lineage. Bailai looked outside the Windmill Village. Mr. Wren had always been sitting cross-legged at the boundary stone of the Windmill Village. His eyes were slightly closed, and his breathing was steady. It seemed that unless Sumo's resurrection was completed, he would not leave. At this moment, Mr. Wren already knew that Bai Feng was no longer here. However, he would pour all his infatuation into the faith of the Windmill lineage. Sigh. Bailai shook his head and sighed. Little Bai, I really don't know if you are a lucky or unlucky person. However, that Mr. Wren is indeed a trustworthy person. What a pity! A bird flew out of the Mozhan village. It had a cat's head, fangs, and blood-red eyes. It had a wingspan of 3 meters, and a long hook on its tail. It was the heartless spirit beast, the black catbird. It flew out of the Mozhan village like a ghost. At that moment it did not even seem to disturb the air in the void. However, it alarmed the demon lover's forbidden map. Chi. As soon as the black catbird left the Mozhan village, it sensed the abnormality of the surrounding atmosphere. This spirit beast's divine sense was far stronger than that of ordinary lotus warriors. The black catbird's blood-red eyes turned. However, it could not see the demon lover's forbidden map, but instinctively felt that everything around it was a bit strange. It spread its wings and flew straight in the direction of Mount Merriment. The black catbird was a mutated species of the various worlds. It was the best at investigating the enemy's situation and transmitting information. It flew across the starry sky, and with a light movement, it had already reached the periphery of Mount Merriment. However, the black catbird did not fly into the village, but only hovered outside. It was actually much more sensitive and alert than Boss Chien. The great world. The black catbird's blood-red eyes moved. It sensed that the village in front of it had already formed a great world. In other words, this place could allow Dharmarajas to descend. This piece of information was actually already enough. As for whether there were other cultivators in the village, it was not the black catbird's concern. Therefore, it immediately turned around and was about to leave. What a good catbird! Dozens of feet away, the demon lover stood tall and looked coldly at the black catbird. At this moment, the black catbird's surroundings were already rippling with all kinds of forbidden maps. Demon lover? The black catbird actually called out the demon lover's name. Oh! The demon lover was also a little surprised. It seems that there are indeed many secrets in the Mozhan village. A spirit beast like you can actually speak the human language and know my name. Whoosh! The black catbird did not speak to the demon lover at all. Instead, it opened its mouth and directly spat out a ray of fire. The fire grew with the wind and shot out hundreds of feet, like a long river. At the same time, the black catbird followed the fire and headed straight for the demon lover. It seemed that the black catbird was definitely a hot-tempered bird. It knew how to take the initiative to attack. However, how could that kind of attack hurt the demon lover? The demon lover gently waved one hand and directly swept up an endless whirlwind. In the starry sky, the fire was directly blown away by the demon lover's celestial wind. However, the demon lover's expression could not help but change. Because at the same time that the fire dispersed, the black catbird actually disappeared without a trace. It turned out that the attack just now was the black catbird's retreat for the sake of advancing. What a cunning bird! The black catbird used the feint attack just now to escape, and it could actually escape the restriction of the demon lover's forbidden map. This was indeed something that the demon lover did not expect. Search! The demon lover shouted coldly in his heart. Once again, the starry sky above the fallen mortal town lit up with the light of the forbidden map at the same time. Unknowingly, the demon lover's forbidden map actually covered the entire fallen mortal world. Hiss! In the world listening tower, Jia Shuxing looked at the fallen mortal sand table that continuously lit up with mysterious light and could not help but gasp. The demon lover's forbidden map was so powerful. The black catbird headed straight for the Mozhan village. Its speed was actually even faster than the demon lover's forbidden map. However, just as it was about to fly into the Mozhan village, the light of the forbidden map outside the Mozhan village suddenly lit up. That was the forbidden map formation. At the same time, a male and female cultivator were already standing outside the Mozhan village. Chapter 1147. The male cultivator was dressed in a light blue robe, while the female cultivator wore a watercolor dress. They looked extremely calm, as if they had been waiting for the black cat for a long time. Their bodies shone with endless colorful light like flames. Lotus Night Stage 9. Hiss, meow, the black catbird screeched when it saw the two cultivators. It was extremely fearful of the aura emanating from the two cultivators. However, it wasn't a complete suppression from their realm, but a restriction from their bloodline. The bloodline of the phoenix. In all the realms, the phoenix was the absolute king of all birds. Xian Tian and Xing Chen were the undying phoenixes. The black catbird was still a bird at the end of the day. Therefore, the black catbird was completely suppressed by the phoenix's bloodline. At this moment, the black catbird retracted its wings, trembling and trembling all over. Meow! Its voice was mournful, but it couldn't struggle. At this moment, it could no longer speak the human language. It didn't know that there was a pair of phoenixes in fallen mortal town. Hee, a cat dares to act rashly? Xing Chen sneered, then gently raised her arm and emitted a beam of phoenix flames that enveloped the black catbird. Incinerate! Xing Chen didn't stand on ceremony and shouted. The black catbird had already turned into ashes in the phoenix flames. At this moment, Mo Lang had arrived. Mo Lang, we've destroyed the black catbird, Xian Tian said. Fortunately, the two ancestors intervened, or it would have flown back to Mo village. Mo Lang said. Sigh. Xian Tian sighed. Mo Lang, whether it flies back to Mo village or not, I'm guessing the Black Lotus will descend. If the black catbird flies back, it can explain everything. If it doesn't, Mo village will know that something has happened. So, let's prepare for war. Galaxy Village has waited for too long. Yes. Mo Lang nodded and sighed. That's right. In Windwheel Village, Sumo has already begun to revive. Taking advantage of the fact that Sumo hasn't fully revived is the best time for Mo Village to act. At the same time, it's also our best chance. Xian Tian's lips curled up. That's right. Mo Lang looked in the direction of Mo Shan Village, and his pupils constricted. The Three Realms Galaxy will shine again. Whatever you owe Xinghe, you have to pay me back. Mo Mountain Village. The Black Shadow clone felt uneasy at the foot of Mo Mountain, because he saw the black catbird rushing out of the Heartless Mountain world. However, after 6 hours, the black catbird was nowhere to be seen. Something happened to the black catbird? The Black Shadow clone was shocked. If there was a possibility that Boss Qian would betray them, then the black catbird would definitely not. The mysterious cat would not betray its master, and it was a top-notch scout. The Shadow clone was confident that it could escape even if it was discovered by a Peak Lotus Realm cultivator. The mystic cat had its own abilities. However, in reality it was gone forever. Outside Mo Shan Village, it was dead silent. He knew that it was Boss Qian who told him about the formation outside Mo Mountain Village. However, he did not know that Xinghe and Feng Luan had already begun their counterattack. On the Heartless Peak, Black Lotus' heartless expression became even more unsightly, because the mysterious cat had not returned. The black catbird was his most beloved pet. His love for the mystic cat was even greater than that of his former disciples. For tens of thousands of years, one man and one bird sat alone on the Heartless Peak. The Heartless Mountain was destroyed. He only took the Heartless Peak and left the mysterious cat. He had absolute trust in the mysterious cat, whether it was loyalty or ability. However, the mysterious cat did not return. Black Lotus Heartless could not help but stand up, his brows furrowed. Then, he paced back and forth on the mountainside. That was something that would only happen when he was extremely anxious. The last time, it seemed like it had only appeared when he was about to seal Amu. Other than the black catbird, no one knew that he had such a habit. Black Lotus knew that things were not looking good. The unknown place. Joy, Love Monk, Elder Lien. Black Lotus' heartless voice sounded. It had been a long time since his voice had sounded here. Therefore, as soon as his voice appeared, there was an immediate response. Heartless, how are you? Elder Lien's voice sounded. Have you reached Fallen Mortal Town? Hee hee, Black Lotus, you're still alive? Joy Girl said. Ba. Love Monk chanted. Heartless, you're finally here. Apologies, everyone. Heartless voice said. Now, I'm already above Fallen Mortal Town. I'm just one step away from descending. However, before that, I need you to open up a path for me to become a Dharmaraja. Mozhan Village is still not a large world. Joy Girl giggled. Black Lotus, we've already prepared for this. Godly Void Village has already been destroyed. Love Monk and I have already sent people to merge Joy and Sumeru villages. I believe it will be completed in a few days. However, we have yet to receive a reply. Once we receive a reply and the two villages complete the merging, Love Monk and I can descend at any time to open up a passageway for you. Don't wait for a reply. Black Lotus said in a low voice. There's most likely a change in Fallen Mortal Town. My spies in Luofan Town have all been eliminated. Now, the entire Fallen Mortal Town is concealed by the Heaven Concealment Array. Your people have most likely been killed. If I'm not wrong, Joy and Sumeru villages have already merged into one. You can descend now. Ba! Love Monk chanted, expressing the shock in his heart. Ilong's battle prowess was far above Imu and Yeshio. There was actually someone in fallen mortal town who could kill him silently. One must know that Ilong's soul lamp was not extinguished. There's actually such a thing? Joy Girl was also shocked. That was because Chun Lu was the disciple she was most proud of. Her cultivation was definitely inherited from her. Chun Lu and Ilong were actually both killed? Furthermore, no news had been transmitted back. The enforcers of East Fence Town have most likely taken action. Black Lotus's voice said, so, don't hesitate anymore. Things might change if you delay. Ba! Love Monk's voice turned cold. Heartless, this little monk is willing to be the first to descend. To open the path to becoming a guardian emperor for you. I'll follow closely behind. Joy Girl retracted her charming voice. This old man will also descend to fallen mortal town with Joy. Elder Lotus said. The three of them quickly reached an agreement. Now, the four of them were bound together in glory and shame. They had prepared for countless years to enter the true law world, and now they were at the final step. So, no one held back anymore. Their respective worlds had already been purified to the point that not much was left. Actually, there was not much time left for them to stay. If they did not enter the true law world soon, they would start to exhaust themselves. So, they could only fight. Alright. I'll leave it to the three of you, Black Lotus said at the end. There was always a kind of tranquility before a storm. At this moment, the fallen mortal world was at this moment. Suddenly, an endless whirlpool appeared in the sky above Joy Sumeru village. A door to a world was opening, emitting endless golden light. That was the power of a guardian emperor. In Galaxy Village, White Lotus Boy could not help but raise his eyebrows. Chapter 1148. Dharma Lotus King? White Lotus Boy's mouth twitched coldly, then he stood up. What's wrong, brother boy? Wang Shui asked. A Dharma King has descended? White Lotus Boy laughed, hee. This time I can probably get the real Dharma King's lotus seed heart. I want to drink some soup. With that, White Lotus Boy took a step out of Galaxy Village. Wang Shui's face tightened, and she followed closely behind. Although White Lotus Boy's combat power was not bad, he might not be able to win against another Dharma Lotus King. After all, everyone was at the same level. White Lotus Boy took a step forward, and besides Wang Shui, no one could keep up. Shen Ming stared blankly at the two of them disappearing. Actually, she wanted to join in the fun, but after thinking about it, she obediently sat where she was. At her current level, she could only be a quiet cook. Whoosh, whoosh, at the same time, two figures flew out of Galaxy Village. The two ancestors, Songhai and Yun San. Sigh. Shen Ming shook her head, and she could only start cleaning the table. Mother! She looked up and saw Huan Hua walking out of the house. You want to go too? Mother won't go. Huan Hua shook her head. Your father and a few ancestors have left the village. Let's just wait in this village. If they can't solve it, it's useless for us to go. White Lotus Boy said that the Dharma Lotus King has descended. Shen Ming said, Mother, this time, everyone in Galaxy Village has left the cave. Can they save sister and brother-in-law? Your father said, they can. Huan Hua pulled Shen Ming to sit beside her and said with certainty. Merriment Village. Endless golden light appeared in the center of the village, and a door opened between heaven and earth. Then, a monk walked out of the golden light. He wore a moon-white robe, clean and spotless. He had delicate features that made people forget about him. His eyes were clear, without any impurities. Love Monk did not have any lustful look. At this moment, he put his palms together like a real Buddha descending. Ba! Love Monk chanted loudly. The chant spread throughout the entire merriment world. Buddhist chants reverberated endlessly. However, the entire world was empty. There was no response at all. Sure enough, a dragon had fallen, and the joyful spring dew was also gone. Passion Monk could not help but frown slightly. Black Lotus was right. This was already a great world, but 2 of the cultivators on their side had already been killed. Did the White Mountain law enforcer make a move? Love Monk turned to look in the direction of Mo Shan village. Then, with a shake of his hand, a ray of Buddhist light shot out. There was only one ray of Buddhist light, but it instantly turned into a long river, directly flying out of Merry Meridian village, heading straight for Mo Mountain village. This was the power of a law emperor. At this moment, no power in fallen mortal town could stop him. The Devil Boy's forbidden painting and the Scholar's great formation were useless against Passion Monk's Dharma King power. Bang, however, at that moment, a white shadow appeared from the direction of the Galaxy Village. The white figure punched out fiercely, and the fist light was like a dragon, heading straight for the Buddhist light. Boom, crack, the 2 forces collided, causing the starry sky to tremble. Endless immortal chi rolled out, like a sea of clouds suddenly appearing in the starry sky. All the villages in fallen mortal town felt this incomparably powerful impact. Because that was not a power that should have appeared in fallen mortal town. Inside the world listening tower, Jia Shuxing raised his eyebrows. Muse, our heaven concealment great formation probably can't be hidden anymore. In Merry Meridian village, a law emperor has descended. You stay in the world listening tower, don't leave. I'll go take a look. Yes. Be careful, young master. Muse nodded. Jia Shuxing held the world listening divine brush and directly left the world listening tower. Outside the Galaxy Village, Mr. Ren looked in the direction of Merry Meridian village, and his expression also changed slightly. Was that the power of Lien Venerable? Otherwise, he could not think of what kind of power could cause such a vibration. Among them, one of the power should be White Lotus Child. Mr. Wren's cheeks tightened. No matter what happened, he just had to protect Windwheel Village. Broken Sleeve Village. Snow Shadow and Lihan looked up at the same time. Had a law emperor descended? The couple looked at each other, and their figures moved, leaving the village at the same time. Mozhan Village. The Black Shadow clone heard the movement outside, and immediately stood up. A law emperor descended? He looked back at Heartless Peak. At this moment, Heartless Peak also lit up with a black brilliance. His real body was ready to descend at any time. Finally, there was progress. Boom, boom. Explosions sounded continuously in fallen mortal world, and countless vortexes of power appeared in the starry sky. Actually, that was just a clash of power between White Lotus Child and Love Monk. If fallen mortal town had not expanded endlessly, it would not have been able to withstand such power. At the same time, White Lotus Child had already rushed into Merry Meridian village. Crack! As White Lotus Child entered, some parts of the Merry Meridian village began to collapse. Because 2 Lien Venerables was a power that a great world could not withstand. Love Monk jerked his head. In front of him stood a boy in white who looked only 8 or 9 years old. That boy looked like a porcelain doll. However, under his feet was a white lotus, and his entire body was emitting the aura of Lien Venerables. Lien Venerables? Love Monk looked at White Lotus Child in disbelief. Who are you? You are a Lien Venerables. How can you appear in fallen mortal town? White Lotus Child sneered. I am a boy under White Mountain's Great Lotus Venerables, White Lotus. I came to fallen mortal town on orders from my master to patrol. Previously, I did not appear as a law emperor, so naturally, I can come. You all want to kill people and destroy the world, so you need a law emperor to descend. It is impossible without a great world. White Mountain. A boy under Great Lotus Venerables? Love Monk's expression changed several times. He had never been to White Mountain, so he did not know the situation there. Facing a Alien Venerables on White Mountain, he could not help but be shocked. What was going on? Black Lotus did not say that there would be a Alien Venerables in Fallen Mortal Town. A Alien Venerables was not important, the key was White Mountain's attitude. Senior brother child, kill this monk. At this moment, Wang Shui had already rushed into the village. He is the head of the Meridian monk, kill him. Boom. White Lotus child did not like to speak too much nonsense. Since junior sister Wang said so, there was no need to say more. Just kill. White Lotus child raised his hand and punched at Love Monk. Love Monk was at the Alien Venerables realm. In the Meridian realm, he was in existence above millions, and not below anyone. He had formed an alliance with Black Lotus, Joy, and Elder Lotus tens of thousands of years ago. The purification of the Meridian realm had long been completed. He had always been waiting for the day when he descended to Fallen Mortal Town and rushed to White Mountain. But he did not expect that the moment he descended, he would encounter a Alien Venerables from White Mountain? This was definitely not within his expectations. Boom. Love Monk wanted to test White Lotus Child's battle power again, so he directly punched out. Godly Shumi Fist. Love Monk's body glowed with a myriad of golden lights, because he had long obtained the invincible Vajra body. Boom. Ka. This time, the two of them directly punched each other. In an instant, the atmosphere of the entire Meridian village changed. Wild winds raged, and the entire great world was splitting. The Meridian world was directly split into two. Chapter 1149. A clash of fists could cause a great world to collapse. The battle between Law Emperors shook Wang Shui's soul, let alone the other fallen mortal cultivators. It was a power that belonged to the true Law realm. Love Monk's expression changed, while White Lotus Boy sneered. Love Monk was invincible in the Sumeru world. Because he was the only Law Emperor in the entire world, Love Monk had never met a true opponent since he became a Law Emperor. However, he met one today. White Lotus Boy was different from Love Monk. He was born and raised on White Mountain. A Law Emperor level battle was not unfamiliar to him. It was even normal. The punch seemed to be evenly matched, but White Lotus Boy had the upper hand psychologically. Monk, let's go again. As he spoke, Boy White Lotus took a step forward and blasted out another punch. He did not have any psychological burden. Even if Fallen Mortal Town was destroyed, it was nothing to White Lotus Boy. Most importantly, White Lotus Boy only wanted to drink a bowl of lotus seed soup. However, it was different for Love Monk. He was the first to arrive and was the vanguard of the Black Lotus sect. He shouldered the task of opening the Law Emperor passage. At this moment, if he was entangled or killed by White Lotus Boy, then their side would suffer heavy losses. Therefore, Love Monk could not really fight against White Lotus Boy. White Lotus Boy's fist wind came again, but Love Monk did not exchange blows with him. Instead, he directly dodged to the side. At the same time, he waved his robe and directly took out a magic treasure. It looked like a piece of bluestone. However, it grew with the wind and turned into a mountain in the blink of an eye. Above the mountain, Buddhist light lingered and Sanskrit sounds could be heard. Many golden Buddhist runes surrounded it. Mount Meru. That was Love Monk's life magic treasure. This treasure was extraordinary. Suppress. Love Monk shouted softly. Mount Meru went straight for White Lotus Boy. At that moment, it was like a 5-element mountain pressing down on the demon monkey. Huh! White Lotus Boy's small eyebrows could not help but frown, because he sensed the extraordinary power of that magic treasure. Law Emperor's life magic treasure? White Lotus Boy's fist wind had already been unleashed, so naturally, he could not retract it. Boom, boom, his fist wind hit Mount Meru. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At that moment, Mount Meru paused slightly, and at the same time, shook in the void. However, It was a Dharmaraja's personal treasure after all. Boy White Lotus's fist could break ordinary Lianhua, but it couldn't shatter Mount Meru. Mount Meru blocked Boy White Lotus's punch, but it couldn't do anything to him. However, Passion Monk did not follow. On the contrary, not only did he not move forward, but he also rapidly retreated. His target was not White Lotus Boy but Emo Shan village. There was no need to mention Passion Monk's cultivation. Other than the White Lotus Boy, no one else could stop him. Ka in the void, Passion Monk's flying, demonic Lang's forbidden painting, and Scholar's great array were all broken by him. Actually, at this moment, Devil Lang, Scholar, Vast Ocean, Cloud San, Mysterious Sky, Xing Chen, Lihan, and Shui-Ing were already in the mortal descending starry sky. However, none of them could stop Passion Monk. At that moment, even if he were to risk his life, it would be impossible. Passion Monk's magic power was too strong and his speed was too fast. They were still too weak in front of Dharma Lotus. Boom! White Lotus Boy and Wang Shui followed closely behind, but they were still half a moment behind Passion Monk. But this half a moment was enough to change many things. Passion Monk arrived in front of Emo Shan village in one step and then waved his hand. Whoosh, boom, an incomparably vigorous Dharma King power directly poured into Emo Shan village. Boom, hum, looking again, the entire Emo Shan village shook. The black shadow clone suddenly stood up in Emo Shan village. The heartless peak above Emo Shan village suddenly sank down, thousands of feet. The two peaks were about to merge. The shadow clone felt the power of Dharma Lotus King. However, the Dharma King's descending passage had not been completely opened. Because this was still not enough. Passion Monk raised an eyebrow. White Lotus Boy still dragged him in. At the same time, White Lotus Boy crossed Mount Meru and entered the attack range. He threw a very simple punch at Passion Monk. Amit Ba! Passion Monk's mouth twitched. In terms of combat power, he might not be a match for White Lotus Boy, but in terms of scheming, White Lotus Boy could not catch up to him. At this moment, what he needed was this punch. When he looked again, he saw Passion Monk striking out with his palm at White Lotus Boy. At the same time, his other hand formed a Buddhist seal. Rotation. A swastika suddenly appeared in the palm of his palm that was aimed at White Lotus Boy. Senior Brother Boy, stop! Wang Shui shouted from behind. However, White Lotus Boy's punch had already been thrown. How could it be retracted so easily? One punch was a galaxy river. The cultivators watching the battle in the galaxy were all shocked. They believed that it would be difficult for them to escape unscathed under such a punch. They would either die or be injured. Boom! White Lotus Boy's punch hit Passion Monk's swastika. In an instant, the swastika turned into a black hole-like existence. The power of White Lotus Boy's punch was completely poured into it. The path of Dharma Kings. Passion Monk's mouth curved. There was a loud bang outside Emo Shan village. The power of White Lotus Boy's punch had been completely transferred to Emo Shan village by Passion Monk's rotation immortal technique. Borrowing force to fight force. White Lotus Boy had actually assisted Passion Monk in paving the path of Dharma Kings. Buzz, boom, the entire Emo Shan village was shaken. The lack of power of Passion Monk was directly made up for. Heartless Peak instantly sank and completely fell. Heartless Peak and Emo Mountain completely overlap. In an instant, endless black light suddenly spread in Emo Shan village. Black torches shot straight into the starry sky. At that moment, it was as if someone had opened the black gate to the earth. Black Lotus's shadow clone did not hesitate. He moved and directly rushed into the black peak. At that moment, he was like a moth flying into the black fire. However, in reality, he was not a moth, but a guiding force. At that moment, all the cultivators in Luo Fan Town were shocked. Jia Shuxing held the world-listening divine brush in his hand and his expression suddenly changed. He knew that Black Lotus was about to descend. However, He had no ability to stop it. So, he turned around and went straight in the direction of Windwheel Village. Because he knew that Mr. Wren would definitely defend Windwheel Village to the death. However, this time, he most likely would not be able to defend it. Ha 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 ha. At the same time, a burst of wild laughter came from Emotion Village. That was Black Lotus's heartless laughter. The main body is back. A black figure was gradually transforming. Whoosh, whoosh, endless black wind directly blew out from Emotion Village. The black wind covered the sky and earth, like a violent whirlpool in the depths of vast universe. What should come has finally come. Venerable Songhai looked at everything, his eyes slightly narrowed. Beside him stood the devastatingly beautiful Yun San. Is AMU here? Yun San asked. Yes. He is at the bottom of the Black Peak. Songhai nodded. You want to learn from that Black Lotus's shadow clone? Ha. Songhai nodded and laughed. If I don't enter Black Mountain, who will? Sumo is not here. Then, only I can resonate with AMU and break out of the seal. Once Sumo is reborn and AMU breaks the seal, then, the Three Realms Galaxy can return to vast universe. Songhai's tone was a little proud. That was the pride from ancient vast sea, the pride from the Three Realms Galaxy. I will wait for you to come back. Yun San nodded and said nothing. Whoosh, Venerable Songhai turned into a blue light and went straight to Black Mountain. Chapter 1150. Outside Windmill Village. Mr. Wren had already stood up. The aura from Mozhan Village had not spread to Windmill Village yet. However, as the East Border Enforcer, Mr. Wren had already seen everything. The Black Lotus was back, and the final change had begun. Mr. Wren looked into Windmill Village. He did not know how long it would take for Windmill to be completed. However, as long as he was alive, he would stand outside Windmill Village. He would be the last guardian of Windmill Village. At this moment, a figure flashed and appeared in front of him. Scholar? Mr. Wren frowned. Why are you here? Jia Shuxing held the world listening pen in one hand and a wine jar in the other. Fisherman, I'm here to drink with you. Scholar, you don't have to drink with me. Mr. Wren naturally understood what the scholar meant and said in a low voice. Scholar, go back to your world listening tower and don't care about Luofan Town. Even if the world changes, Venerable Lotus can still protect your life. But if you drink with me here, I'm afraid you will die. So what if I die? Jia Shuxing smiled. You and I have been friends for a while. Fisherman, stop talking nonsense. Come. Jia Shuxing raised the wine jar and drank a few mouthfuls, then directly threw the wine jar to Mr. Wren. Mr. Wren took the wine jar and sighed. Scholar, I'm the one who got you into trouble. Ha ha. Jia Shuxing suddenly laughed. Don't say useless things. However, I suddenly remembered, am I the only scholar in Luofan Town now? Ha ha. Windmill Village, Windmill Palace. Sumo's godly soul had basically solidified. That soul recovery pill had even integrated with Sumo's godly soul. At this moment, the appearance of Sumo's godly soul was already very clear. It was in the state of being awake and unconscious. The body in the center of the hall of Windmill Palace had already completely fused. However, it did not have any spiritual intelligence. Its facial features were also not clear, but its whole body emitted a faint green light. It was a physical body comparable to the Dharma Lotus golden body. However, it was now a dead object. However, as long as Sumo's soul awakened, she would be able to fuse with it and become the real Dharma Lotus golden body. Sumo was still as handsome as ever. Bai Lai's expression became even more solemn, because there was only one last step left. He didn't want to fail at the last moment. However, he still needed 6 hours. Bai Lai's pupils contracted slightly. He had already sensed the changes in Luofan Town. The Heaven Concealment Formation couldn't hide it for more than 3 days. The arrival of the Passion Monk meant that he knew everything. The Black Lotus had also descended. The Law Emperor level battle team was currently unfolding in Fallen Mortal Town. Can the forces outside the Windmill Village really stop 2 Dharmarian kings? In fact, they only needed to delay for 6 hours. If Suma wakes up, she must be a Dharmaraja. However, could he endure 12 hours? After all, that could be an extremely long 12 hours. Bailai only hoped that time would pass faster. Rumble, crack, inside Mo Mountain Village there was a loud sound. The mist of the entire Mo Mountain had already dissipated. Heartless Peak and Mo Mountain merged into one, becoming a new black mountain. Halfway up the mountain, a black-robed middle-aged cultivator stood majestically. His body exuded an unparalleled Law Emperor aura. Black Lotus Heartless, the Law Lotus Venerable who came out of Mo Mountain Village. He was the purifier of a hidden world. In fact, everything was driven by him. Black Lotus. White Lotus Boy saw Black Lotus and smiled disdainfully. Is it really him? Brother boy, do you really know Black Lotus? Wang Shui hurriedly asked. There is White Lotus Boy on White Mountain, so naturally there is Black Lotus Boy. However, he was defeated by me back then and finally fell into reincarnation. White Lotus Boy sneered. No wonder he always wanted to return to the true Law Realm. Black Lotus Boy? Wang Shui couldn't help but frown when she heard this. Heartless turned out to be from White Mountain. It seemed that he was an important chess piece of Black Lotus Venerable. Sister Shui, I will kill this monk first. I will immediately deal with Black Lotus. White Lotus Boy's eyes finally emitted cold light and killing intent. With 2 Law Lotus Venerables in front of him, even he felt the pressure. He must kill one first. Otherwise, if the 2 of them joined hands, even he might not have a chance of winning. However, White Lotus Boy knew that Wang Shui should be able to temporarily block Law Lotus Venerable. Kill. White Lotus Boy's heart moved and his blood chi surged. At the same time, a seal was directly opened between his eyebrows. A natal white lotus appeared under his feet. Both of his hands grabbed at the void. White Lotus Boy's hand already had a golden long pestle. The long pestle's brilliance circulated and was covered with dense runes. Ghost's Wrath. This was the first time Wang Shui saw Brother Boy take out this Lianbo divine weapon, which was one of the best in White Mountain. It seemed that this time, Senior Brother Tong Zi was serious. Amitba, Love Monk chanted the name of Buddha. The Black Lotus Heartless descended. Love Monk felt that the pressure on him was instantly reduced, and at the same time, his side's chance of winning instantly doubled. Therefore, he was much more relaxed. He recalled Mount Meru and calmly looked at White Lotus Boy, looking like an eminent monk. Hee. White Lotus Boy laughed coldly. His boy's face showed a bit of ferocity. It was a look that was extremely incompatible with his face. White Lotus Boy raised the pestle with both hands and slashed straight at Love Monk. It was an extremely simple move, from top to bottom, without any other changes. It was extremely powerful and simple, but the pestle was extremely fast. Humph! Love Monk sneered. Could this pestle shatter his Mount Meru? Therefore, he raised it with one hand. Mount Meru was suddenly activated and placed horizontally above his head, blocking White Lotus Boy's pestle. At the same time, Love Monk formed a seal with both hands. The swastika runes appeared again. They directly turned into a long dragon and went straight at White Lotus Boy. Since Mount Meru blocked the pestle, Love Monk's technique would definitely be able to restrain White Lotus Boy. A smile even appeared on Love Monk's lips. However, this smile came a little too early. Crack, crack, in the starry sky, White Lotus Boy's body suddenly expanded. His outer skin instantly cracked and fell off. An incomparably tall and ferocious-looking boy appeared. He had a tattooed head and angry eyes, and his fangs were bared. He looked like a monster. Boy's angry appearance. That was White Lotus Boy's original appearance. Love Monk was stunned. Love Monk, dodge! The heartless voice sounded. Black Lotus knew White Lotus Boy's combat strength. Boom! Before Love Monk's swastika runes could reach White Lotus Boy, his ghost's wrath pestle had already landed on Mount Meru. Tens of thousands of golden lights filled the sky with smoke and dust. At that moment, a powerful sound wave spread through the entire Luo-Fan town. The starry sky shattered countless times. However, everyone felt as if they had lost their hearing. They only saw an image. Mount Meru actually collapsed under White Lotus Boy's pestle, then turned into fragments and smoke. White Lotus Boy was like a fiend. At the same time, the golden pestle had already landed on Love Monk's head. Chapter 1151. Bang! The Love Monk had never expected that the White Lotus Boy would possess such a shocking brute force. To be able to shatter Mount Meru with one strike of the pestle, this was almost unimaginable to Passion Monk. Mount Meru was a top-notch lianbua that he had refined by gathering the essence of the entire Shumi world. The scariest thing was that the power of the pestle did not diminish in the slightest. It was heading straight for his head. However, Love Monk could no longer avoid it. This was because the natal White Lotus Underboy White Lotus's feet had already spread to Passion Monk's feet. It had actually formed a binding effect for an instant. In theory, it was impossible for law emperors of the same level to imprison each other. The power of the Great Lotus Venerable. However, at that moment, no one knew that Child White Lotus's lotus actually contained a power bestowed by the Great Lotus Venerable. That power had imprisoned Passion Monk. In an instant, Passion Monk's face turned pale. However, there was no turning back. Bang! The wrath of the ghost pestle struck the Passion Monk's head. In an instant, Passion Monk's head was smashed into pieces by the pestle. Countless rays of golden light suddenly exploded. One must know that the Passion Monk was someone who had cultivated the golden body of Buddhism. This sound shook the vast universe. Countless small worlds were destroyed by the shockwave. The Love Monk's divine soul soared into the sky. Although his physical body was destroyed, his soul was still there. The heartless Black Lotus flew straight into the starry sky. He raised one hand and created a whirlwind to collect the Passion Monk's soul. No matter what, he couldn't allow this soul to fall into his hands. However, at the same time, Wang Shui had already gotten up. She raised her hand and summoned an octagonal lantern. The lantern's entire body was fiery red. It was a ball of charcoal. In an instant, the entire Mo mountain world was illuminated. The runes were burning like flames. Blood Lantern. A strange look appeared in Black Lotus's eyes. The Blood Lantern was specialized in devouring the flesh, blood, and souls of cultivators at and above the Lotus Scholar level. It had no effect on cultivators below the Lotus Scholar level. The treasure of White Mountain. That was the white-robed Great Lotus Venerable's Dharma treasure. Who was that little girl in purple? She actually had the white-clothed Great Lotus Venerable's magic treasure? It seemed like his information was still lacking. However, the scene in front of him didn't allow him to think too much. Since he had already descended, there was no way out. He could only fight to the death and directly pursue the true method. As soon as the Blood Lantern appeared, it immediately set off a bloody light that filled the sky. Black Lotus involuntarily took a step back. At the same time, he also took out a magic treasure. He did not dare to face the Blood Lantern head-on with his own strength. Otherwise, it was extremely likely that he would be directly killed by the Blood Lantern. Looking again, a black light shot out from within the bloody light. It was as if a black dragon had suddenly rolled out of a sea of blood. It was a small black sword that was 3 inches long. A black lotus was engraved on the small sword. Tian Yin sword. Wang Shui also frowned. Black Lotus was indeed a subordinate of the black-clothed Great Lotus Venerable. The celestial Yin sword was the black-clothed Grand Lotus Venerable's Dharma treasure. It was refined from the vengeful spirits of many worlds. Once this sword was unleashed, it could destroy heaven and earth. The Blood Lantern and the Heaven-E'en Sword were Lienbo divine weapons that were on par with each other. At this moment, this battle was no longer about the Love Savior. This was because, between the two divine weapons, it was already very difficult for Passion Monk to protect himself. Any one of them could destroy his divine soul. Once the Blood Lantern appeared, Passion Monk's divine soul instantly distorted. Although he was a Law Emperor's divine soul, he could not withstand a single blow from the Grand Lotus Venerable's Dharma treasure. "Heartless, save me!" Passion Monk shouted. However, that was also the last thing he said. With that, he was directly sucked into the Blood Lantern. In the void, Passion Monk's screams echoed. Any living being might have a kind of fear when facing true death. Even the Law Lotus Venerable was no exception. If he died in the Mo Mountain world, Passion Monk would no longer be reincarnated. Black Lotus' heartless expression was extremely gloomy. He naturally sincerely wanted to save Passion Monk, because, with one less Law Emperor, they would have one less hope of opening the true Law realm. However, he was powerless even though he had the heart. Chi-chi boom! The celestial E'en sword pierced the Blood Lantern with black light. This was a confrontation between the Grand Lotus Venerable's Dharma treasures. The sky full of light and endless immortal power directly caused Mo Mountain Village to fall into destruction. Just now, it borrowed the power of the two Law Lotus Venerables to form a large world. Unfortunately, this large world instantly began to head towards destruction. From birth to death, the Mo Mountain world was like a mayfly. However, this kind of destruction was exactly what Black Lotus needed. He would absorb the power he needed from all the destruction. After all, they were all purifiers. If the power of destruction was turned into their own, they would be able to open the door to the true Law realm. Moreover, this time, the Celestial E'en Sword had the upper hand. After all, the Celestial E'en Sword was a physical attack-type Dharma treasure, while the Blood Lantern specialized in collecting blood souls. With one strike, the Blood Lantern was pierced through by the Celestial E'en Sword. However, Passion Monk could no longer come out. The Blood Lantern was damaged, but it did not completely explode. Passion Monk's soul had long been refined by the Blood Lantern. "Little girl, give me your life." Black Lotus' heartless eyes were filled with murderous intent and anger. Passion Monk had fallen. He had suffered a heavy blow. Therefore, he vented all his anger on Wang Shui. "Kill." Black Lotus's mind moved, and the Celestial E'en Sword went straight to Wang Shui. "Withdraw." Wang Shui waved her hand and withdrew the Blood Lantern. She was not Dharma Lotus Venerable King. She could only rely on the Great Lotus Venerable King's Dharma treasure to restrain Black Lotus. However, if Black Lotus specifically dealt with her, she was not his opponent. Wang Shui would not fight head-on. That kind of life and death duel did not belong to Wang Shui. When Black Lotus looked at her, a forbidden map had already appeared under her feet. Her forbidden painting had been passed down by Mo Lang. With her realm, her forbidden map was better than Devil Lang. Just as the Celestial E'en Sword was about to fly toward her, she had already teleported behind White Lotus Boy. "Brother boy!" Wang Shui hurriedly called. "Sister Shui, don't worry." White Lotus Boy's anger had not subsided, and he still looked like a demon. "Just now, that monk was not killed by me. Let's have another one." "Good," Wang Shui loudly encouraged. "Black Lotus, long time no see." White Lotus Boy held the Ghost Wrath Scepter and stood in front of Black Lotus. "White Lotus, long time no see." Black Lotus' heartless eyes were cold. "That year, it was thanks to you that I reincarnated in the lower realm. Today, everything will be settled." There is a cause and there is an effect, the true cycle of life and death. White Lotus Boy said, "Master, let me go down the mountain, most likely to let me end my karma with you. Today, either you die or I die." "Black or white?" Black Lotus sneered. "Life and death do not exist. Everyone could not understand the conversation between the two. Everyone present, including Wang Shui, did not know their past. However, they did not have any superfluous words and directly fought in one place. Black and white crisscrossed, destroying the earth and destroying the earth. It was a battle that made the entire Luo Fan town tremble. At this moment, Wang Shui did not look at the battle between White Lotus Boy and Black Lotus, but her figure moved and went straight to the Black Mountain. Amu and Shen Yan were sealed under the Black Mountain. "Father, Mother, I'm coming." Wang Shui suppressed the emotions in her heart. In front of her was Songhai, and behind her was Devil Lang. Chapter 1152. The mortal realm continued to collapse. The joyous realm, Summer realm, and Black Mountain realm had fused into one amidst the destruction. Smoke dispersed and immortal power filled the sky. The aftermath of a Law Emperor level battle was enough to destroy a small realm. At this time, White Lotus Child and Heartless each displayed their abilities and were locked in battle. Songhai, Wang Shui, and Demon Lang headed straight for Black Mountain. However, as soon as they approached Black Mountain, they felt an invisible pressure. At the foot of Black Mountain, the light of a spell suddenly lit up. Countless black lotuses gushed out from the foot of Black Mountain and bloomed layer by layer. Law Emperor Formation. The outer perimeter of Black Mountain had already been set up by the black lotuses. Songhai's body couldn't help but stagnate. Layers of barriers, Law Emperor Formation, he couldn't break it. At the foot of Black Mountain, Heartless was already prepared. How could he let everyone rescue Amu so easily? A forbidden map appeared under Wang Shui's feet. At the same time, a mysterious light appeared in her hand. It was an apricot yellow triangular formation flag. As soon as this flag appeared, the black lotuses suddenly became agitated. They seemed to be stimulated by something, tumbling and struggling like waves. "Open!" Wang Shui's hand formed a seal and shouted. The apricot yellow formation flag could be used against Law Emperor Formation. The apricot yellow flag turned into a stream of light and directly inserted into the Black Lotus Formation. Whoosh! In an instant, apricot yellow flames rose like the wind, and the surrounding black lotuses rolled to the sides like a tide. However, the black lotuses further outside were still surging here. One retreating, one advancing, rolled up 1,000-foot-high wave. Layer upon layer, it was as if endless clouds were rolling towards the sky. However, Wang Shui's apricot yellow flag still opened the Black Lotus Formation at this moment. Although it was only for a moment, it was enough. Venerable Songhai didn't hesitate. He turned into a blue light and directly rushed into Black Mountain. As long as he could enter, there would be more ways. As soon as Demon Lang arrived, the Black Lotus Formation closed again. The apricot yellow flag was directly submerged in the Black Lotus Formation. "Grandpa, I can only open it for a moment." Wang Shui was somewhat blaming herself. "I tried my best. If Ancestor Songhai enters, then we might be able to rescue Amu. Because they are one entity to begin with." Mo Lang consoled. Hu Hua, and at that moment, a tremendous tidal force came from the direction of Meru Meru. This kind of power caused all the celestial river cultivators present to waver. When he looked again, it was as if two incomparably huge suns had appeared in the universe at the same time. The light was dazzling. Countless fragrances blew up like a hurricane, appearing like a sea of perfume. Within the light, a peerlessly beautiful female cultivator wearing colorful clothes appeared in the starry sky. Her eyes and brows were extremely beautiful, and she was bashful and charming. Her entire body exuded the light of a Law Emperor. She was a beauty among the infinite world. Beside her was a tall and sturdy old man. A strand of his long white beard was scattered in front of his chest. His face was rosy, and he had the demeanor of an immortal. Ha ha ha! Happy Girl's charming laughter spread throughout the entire fallen mortal realm. I have finally descended. Where's the little monk? At the same time, she glanced around. However, she did not see Love Monk. She did not even sense his aura. Miss Joy and Elder Lien arrived at the same time. They did not know that Passion Monk had fallen. Elder Lien, help me kill this White Lotus boy. Miss Joy, quickly go to Windwheel Village. Passion Monk has fallen. Let's destroy Windwheel Village first, then we can stir up the momentum of the fallen mortal realm and open the gate of White Mountain. Black Lotus shouted in the midst of the battle. Both Miss Joy and Elder Lien were slightly stunned. Passion Monk had fallen? This was something they had never expected. Who could kill Passion Monk in Fallen Mortal Town? However, they were all Law Emperors. Naturally, they saw White Lotus Boy and understood many things at once. If they could not figure it out, they could not ask again at this time. Therefore, they did not hesitate at all. Miss Joy turned into a colorful light and went straight to Windwheel Village. Elder Lien went straight to White Lotus Boy. There were 3 Law Lotus Venerables. This was something that had never happened in Fallen Mortal Town. The entire Fallen Mortal Realm was constantly collapsing. It could be said that Black Lotus had the absolute advantage in terms of combat power at this time. Seeing this, Wang Shui once again took out the blood lantern and went straight to Elder Lien. She knew that she was definitely no match for Elder Lien. However, she had to do her best to hold him back. Only then would White Lotus Boy have a chance of winning. Otherwise, if something happened to White Lotus Boy, the consequences would be unimaginable. After all, apart from White Lotus Boy, there was no real Law Emperor on her side. Whoosh! Demonic Lang's mortal coffin was taken out at the same time and went straight to Elder Lien. At the same time, the forbidden map under his feet was fully deduced. In the galaxy, the fragments of the forbidden map were also completely mobilized by Demonic Lang. Perhaps those forbidden maps could no longer harm the Law Emperor's body, but it was better than nothing. Clang, the cry of a phoenix sounded. Black Sky and Xing Chen attacked at the same time. Phoenix flames swept toward Elder Lien. Within the flames, there was also a sword light. That was naturally the ancient mysterious heaven sword, Phoenix Feather. Whoosh! An ancient umbrella was also taken out in the void. That was the original mysterious yellow umbrella that Yun San had borrowed from Yuluo before. At the same time, Yun San stood in front of the zither. With a wave of one hand, countless sound waves swept up. That was a sound wave attack. Lihen and Shui Ying had already disappeared on the spot. They did not go straight to Elder Lien. Instead, they went straight to Windwheel Village. At this moment, all the cultivators of the galaxy present used their mystiques and did their best. Even if it was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, they still had to fight to the death, for the revival of the galaxy, so that they would no longer be puppets. In fact, ever since the galaxy shattered and they survived, all the venerables of the galaxy had been waiting for this moment. Black Lotus Heartless cleansed the 3 realms of galaxy. Every cultivator from the celestial river present was actually an avenger. They had hidden for countless years just for this moment, to save AMU and restore the galaxy. Thus, they did not care about the prize. In their hearts, as the guardians of the 3 realms of galaxy, they had already lived for tens of thousands of years. If their eternal silence could be exchanged for the 3 realms of galaxy, then everything would be worth it. Elder Lien went straight to White Lotus Boy. His injuries had already healed, so he naturally wanted to take revenge. However, he ran into the blood lantern that was flying toward him. Elder Lien did not recognize that supreme treasure. However, its blood chi made him frown slightly. Fortunately, the blood lantern had already been pierced by the heavenly Yin sword, and its power had been reduced. Elder Lien raised one hand and took out an ancient coin. As soon as the ancient coin appeared, it instantly turned into thousands of coins. Sizzle, sizzle, tens of thousands of golden lights went straight toward the blood lantern. Each ancient coin contained the power of a law king. Moreover, the edges of the ancient coins were as sharp as knives. In an instant it was like a meteor shower that filled the sky. The main body of the ancient coin was hovering above Elder Lien's head. Its clones flew out in an endless stream. Poof, poof. The blood lantern withstood the first and second wave of attacks from the ancient coins. However, when the third wave of ancient coins flew over, there was finally a hole in the blood lantern. The blood lantern had already been damaged earlier, and it was instantly riddled with holes. Ha ha! Elder Lien could not help but laugh toward the sky. Other than the blood lantern, there was no need to fear anyone else. He waved his long sleeve, and the demon boy's forbidden painting and the phoenix's mystique light dissipated. The ancient coins clanged as they moved. The phoenix feather immortal sword and the original mystic yellow umbrella were directly sent flying. A law king was not an existence that they could withstand at all. Chapter 1153. Windwheel Village. Mr. Rin and Jia Shuxing had just finished a jar of wine. Both of them squinted their eyes as if they were slightly drunk, but in fact their minds were clear. How refreshing! Jia Shuxing laughed. Another Law King has descended. Mr. Rin glanced in the direction of Joy and Sumi. It seems that Heartless is determined to win this time. Jia Shuxing nodded with a cold smile. Actually, sometimes I admire Heartless. For tens of thousands of years, he has been fighting for his goal, regardless of good or evil, never slacking off, never changing. Unfortunately, that is his devil-like obsession. Mr. Rin said, if he is not a purifier and focuses on his cultivation, he might be able to enter the true law realm one day. However, stepping on billions of living beings and the corpses of many worlds to ascend White Mountain, that is a devil. I don't understand, what is the point of cultivating like that? Who can say for sure between immortals and devils? Perhaps what he sees is only his own meaning. Jia Shuxing shook his head. However, you are right, we should not be puppets. Our fate should be decided by ourselves. He purified his world, but he cannot stop our choice. Whoosh, whoosh, as the two of them spoke, an extremely strong Law King aura came from the galaxy. That aura, from far to near, was like a rolling tide. 5-colored divine light suddenly appeared. Mr. Ren and Jia Shuxing raised their brows, the hand holding the Lianbua divine weapon tightened. The power of a Law King was not to be underestimated. Joy Lady's charming laughter resounded in the galaxy. At the same time, Joy Lady revealed her incomparably graceful figure. There are actually 2 handsome gentlemen here. Could it be that they specially prepared for me? Joy Lady. Mr. Ren and Jia Shuxing both knew her. Joy Lady, the number 1 in all worlds. This Joy Lady was known as the number 1 female cultivator in all worlds, and she came from fallen mortal town. Within all worlds, countless male cultivators prostrated before her, only to turn into dregs in the end. Joy Lady, Mr. Rin said coldly. Yo. Happy Lady winked at them and said, so it's Mr. Rin and Mr. Jia Shuxing. Why didn't you have a good time with me back then? Are you regretting it now? Ha ha. However, it was not too late. To me, the more men like you, the better. This seat does not reject anyone. Jia Shuxing laughed. I'm happy. You are still so flirtatious even after becoming the Supreme King Alien. Now that I think about it, I do feel a little regretful. If I had followed you and cultivated all those years ago, could I have become a Law Emperor as well? Of course. Joy Maiden said with a charming smile. Scholar, if you want, you can become my guest right now. Sure. Jia Shuxing smiled. This scholar just so happens to be unmarried. To be able to marry a Law Emperor is more than I could ever wish for. However, this place is high and wide. Why don't you follow me back to the World Listening Tower right now? Ha ha! Happy Girl's eyes twinkled. Scholar, are you stalling for time? If you are sincere, then stand at the side. This seat will bring you into the true law realm, and then share the bliss. Joy Maiden was charming to the bone, but she was definitely not a stupid woman. On the contrary, she was extremely intelligent. Teasing the scholar would not affect the overall situation, but she absolutely did not believe that Jia Shuxing would really do it with her. If he was interested, he would have already been hers back then. Why now? Joy, so you are not sincere. Jia Shuxing sneered. Scholar, whether I am sincere or not depends on you. Joy Maiden laughed charmingly. At the same time, her body moved. She rushed straight into Windwheel Village. She did not want to be entangled with Jia Shuxing and Mr. Ren. After all, the situation at Black Lotus was not clear. She did not want to follow in the footsteps of Love Monk. Therefore, she made her move. How could Mr. Ren and Jia Shuxing let her enter Windwheel Village? The purpose of the two of them being here was to guard the Windwheel Village and prevent it from being disturbed. Mr. Ren did not speak much, but his actions were definitely ruthless. Just now, he did not speak. It would be better if the scholar could delay for a while. But since he could not, he could only make his move. Mr. Ren shook his hand, flicked the fishing rod lightly, and the heavenly hook in his hand went straight to Joy Maiden. The law enforcement heavenly hook was far better than the ordinary lianbois. At the same time, the lake water had begun to ripple under Mr. Ren's feet. In the face of Joy Maiden, Mr. Ren had no other thoughts at all. As soon as he made his move, he used his domain and the power of White Mountain. That was his strongest attack. At the same time, Jia Shuxing had also flown up. The world-listening divine brush drew a line in the void, directly drawing a red and black rainbow in the interstellar space. With my world listening, I suppress my world. Jia Shuxing's domain was even stronger than that of Mr. Ren. The reason for that was because his words were law. With the world-listening divine brush in hand, everything he drew could become a domain. At this moment, he protected Windwheel Village with the rainbow. 2 White Mountain law enforcers, one on the left and one on the right, attacked Joy Maiden. Unfortunately, this was not in a tent, otherwise Joy Maiden would be extremely happy. Chi, a murderous aura filled the interstellar space. Joy Maiden twisted her waist, and Mr. Ren's heavenly hook flew in front of her. Joy Maiden sneered. At the same time, she gently pinched with one hand. A long rose branch that was more than a foot long appeared in her hand. A green branch and a red flower. Joy Maiden's slender hand held the long branch. She was somewhat charming, but more murderous. Go! Joy Maiden waved her hand lightly, and the rose flew directly toward Mr. Ren. As soon as the rose left Joy Maiden's hand, it instantly turned into thousands of flower shadows, directly covering the surface of Mr. Ren's lake. Mr. Ren's face changed involuntarily. Because those roses actually took root in the water, just like lotus flowers. At the same time, they began to absorb the power of the lake water. A law enforcer's battle technique was indeed different. Looking again, Joy Maiden did not know when there was a jade rui that was more than a foot long in her hand. It was inlaid with many dazzling gems. Joy Maiden waved the rui in her hand, rolling up endless light, and directly shook off Mr. Ren's heavenly hook. The power of White Mountain did not show its previous strength in front of Joy Maiden. Therefore, in many cases, your strength depended entirely on your opponent. Huan Nu lifted the heavy weight as though it was light. It was simply effortless for her to break young Master Ren's attack. At that moment, Mr. Ren's heart suddenly sank. Just now, he used the power of White Mountain. However, the power of White Mountain directly turned invisible. Mr. Ren, your power of White Mountain can deal with Lotus warriors, but it can't withstand a single blow from Dharma Lotus Venerable. Joy Maiden sneered. At the same time, Joy Maiden twisted her waist and directly passed through Jia Shuxing's long rainbow. Jia Shuxing's face also changed. Joy Maiden gave him a new understanding of the law enforcer's power. There seemed to be a gap between Law Enforcer White Mountain and Law Enforcer. Scholar, come, elder sister will grant you joy. Joy Maiden's voice was charming, but her body was extremely fast. She waved her hand, and the jade Rui went straight for the scholar's immortal heart. They could not stop Joy Maiden at all. P.S. Tonight there will be a patch. I will keep updating until the end. Do you believe me? Ha! Chapter 1154. At the foot of the Black Mountain. Apotheon Songhai was already standing in front of the Black Gate. On the tall stone gate, there was a black lotus seal. Those were countless lotus patterns, like the path of life and death of all living beings. Apotheon Songhai narrowed his eyes at the gate. Amu is inside. Apotheon Songhai seemed to be talking to himself, but also to someone else. Then, he opened his palm. His palm was already suffused with endless blue light. Then, Songhai took a step forward and gently pressed on the black gate. He wanted to use his own power to blast open this gate. Chi-chi, chi-chi. Songhai's hands pressed on the black gate, and the blue light suddenly dispersed. Above the black gate, the blue light spread. However, the spread of the blue light was blocked by the black lotus pattern. The blue light spread, blocked by the black pattern. Thus, the black door gradually emitted a sizzling sound and blue smoke. At that moment, the blue light and the black pattern were like ice and fire meeting. Either the ice would extinguish all the fire, or the fire would swallow all the ice. Buzz, buzz, the entire black gate was shaking. The blue light diffused, and its range was constantly expanding. In an instant, 1/3 of the entire gate was covered by the blue light. The chi of Songhai seemed to be endless. However, Songhai's eyes were focused and did not relax. Chi-chi, Songhai's immortal power surged again, and the blue light above the black gate fiercely attacked the surroundings. However, at this moment, the lotus pattern on the black gate suddenly changed. Buzz, buzz. The black gate shook, and the black lotus pattern suddenly began to counterattack. Apotheon Songhai's expression changed slightly. Because there was an extremely pure Law Emperor's power condensed on the black gate. Obviously, that was the lotus power left behind by Heartless. Boom, crack, above the black gate, brilliance bloomed, and endless power surged like a torrent. Apotheon Songhai's arms shook. If he did not forcefully suppress it, his arms would have bounced off. However, there was already the sound of bones breaking in his arms. Songhai's expression changed slightly. Songhai's immortal power was endless. However, at this moment, Songhai felt as if he was about to be sucked dry by this black stone gate. The heart-wrenching pain spread throughout his body. Songhai was once the #1 venerable of the Three Realms galaxy. The invincible Blue Sea began with immortal venerable Blue Sea. In Songhai's life, he had almost never been defeated. However, today, he seemed to have finally encountered something that he could not do anything about. Wow! In the Pill Sea, the aura was tumbling. The power of the black door caused Songhai to spit out a mouthful of blood. A trace of helplessness and desolation appeared in Songhai's eyes. The power of a Law Emperor? Unfortunately, Blue Sea was not a Law Emperor. At this moment, he was merely relying on his powerful cultivation to forcefully resist the power of a higher level. However, he blocked the second attack of the Lawless King's power. Amu. Songhai looked at the blue light that was slowly fading away and frowned. I will definitely rescue you. Because you are the 100th generation Blue Sea. You are me, and I am you. The helplessness and desolation in Blue Sea's eyes gradually cooled down. What followed was hot blood, fighting spirit, and countless years of Blue Sea's foundation. Invincible in the Blue Sea, no matter where. Looking again, Songhai's hands suddenly pressed down and the black lotus patterns retreated another 30%. At the same time, another version of himself appeared above his head. His divine soul had left his body. However, if Mo Lang was here, he would turn pale with fright. Because that wasn't a divine soul leaving his body, it was the immortal demon 3 Lives art. What appeared above Songhai's head was another version of himself. The immortal demon 3 Lives art was a forbidden technique of the ancient vast seas. However, even a forbidden technique should have its creator. Songhai was the founder of the ancient vast seas, so the immortal demon 3 Lives art was naturally created by him. It was just that Songhai had never displayed his immortal demon 3 Lives art. Above Songhai's head was a white-robed Songhai. His expression was incomparably cold, and his eyes were filled with eternal disdain and arrogance. "You actually let me out?" the white-robed Songhai sneered. "I thought that you would never let me out? You must know that I am your demon body." "Less nonsense," Songhai said in a low voice. "Quickly help me break open this door. AMU is sealed behind this door." "Humph," the white-robed Songhai sneered. "Immortals, demons, and mortals have lived 3 lives. Why are the 2 of you the only ones roaming freely outside? I don't want to save him." "If you don't save him, you will die too." Songhai looked at the black lotus patterns on the black stone door and said coldly, "You should understand that AMU and I are the main bodies. If I die, you will die without a doubt. My immortal demon 3 Lives art is different from Mo Lang's. Your demon body has never been completely cultivated. So, you are just saving yourself. I let you out, so you should know what seal to use." When the white-robed Songhai heard this, he snorted coldly but didn't say anything else. Songhai was right. He was a demon body and couldn't exist as a complete individual. In essence, Songhai didn't cultivate the immortal demon 3 Lives art to the end. "Will they appear?" The white-robed Songhai frowned and asked. "Perhaps they died long ago." "Nonsense. Immortal Paragon," Songhai said. "Don't you know if they will die or not?" The white-robed Songhai pursed his lips and seemed to feel that he had asked a useless question. His expression turned serious and he formed a seal with both hands. Whoosh! The white-robed Songhai formed the Songhai summon. The sun, moon, and stars rise from the primordial world, the ancient sea flows guard the heaven and earth. The white-robed Songhai formed a seal and shouted, "Azure and white light. Return." The white-robed Songhai was still and Songhai. His seal was a pure Songhai immortal technique. Whoosh, whoosh. The moment the white-robed Songhai's technique was completed, not far from the Black Mountain, 2 beams of light abruptly shot out, one blue, the other white. In an instant they transformed into 2 figures. Azure Demon and Xing Fei stood on either side of Songhai. The white-robed Songhai smirked and said, "You were indeed summoned, but I didn't expect you to come so quickly." Azure Demon smiled faintly. "We have been waiting here for a long time. The Songhai summon will return even if we die." Xing Fei smiled. "Plus, we won't die." The white-robed Songhai was very proud and didn't say anything else. "The Songhai is invincible." A proud and gratified smile appeared on Songhai's face. "White Robe, Azure Demon, Xing Fei, hurry and help me break open this Dharmaraja gate." "Okay." The 3 nodded at the same time. The white-robed Songhai was on the top, Azure Demon was on the left, and Xing Fei was on the right. The 3 of them formed seals at the same time. Their seals were different, but the azure light of the Songhai rippled from their bodies. In essence, they had combined into a small spell formation. Whoosh, whoosh, the 3 beams of azure light illuminated the foot of the Black Mountain. Then, they pressed a hand on Songhai's back at the same time. "Songhai, break the seal." The power of the 4 of them gathered in one place. Songhai's palm emitted an unparalleled power. The azure light suddenly spread and devoured the black lotus patterns. The black lotus patterns were finally engulfed by the azure light. Boom! The black gate suddenly opened. At this time, AMU, who was on the other side of the tunnel, couldn't help but look up. For the first time in countless years, he felt the aura of the Songhai lineage. Immortal Venerable Songhai. Shunyan, we're going to break the seal. Amu's eyes lit up. Chapter 1155. Outside Black Mountain. The battle was fierce. Child White Lotus and Black Lotus Heartless were locked in a stalemate. Both of them wanted to eat each other immediately, but it was impossible for them to do so in a short time. Elder Lien's side completely suppressed Wang Shui, Mo Lang, Xian Tian, Xing Chen, and Yun San. Wang Shui was a half-step law emperor. Mo Lang possessed the battle prowess of a peak Lotus Knight. Black Heaven, Xing Chen, and Scattered Cloud were all Lotus Knights. However, a Law King was still a Law King. Fahrenheit King Zun was a qualitative change. The difference between a Lotus Knight and a Dharmaraja was obvious. Wang Shui and the others fought with their lives on the line, but they could only temporarily stop Elder Lien from reuniting with Heartless. However, Elder Lien's ancient coins danced in the air. For Wang Shui and the others, it was almost an unbreakable defense. At the same time, they had to be wary of its attack attribute. At this time, except for Yun San, who had the super-strong defense of the mysterious yellow umbrella, the other people, including Wang Shui, were injured. Fortunately, none of their injuries were serious. The soaring green light that came from the foot of the Black Mountain gave them a jolt. It was the light of the sea. For tens of thousands of years, the Blue Sea lineage held a supreme position in the Three Realms galaxy. As long as the sea existed, so did the galaxy. Therefore, at this moment, they mustered up their remaining courage and fought to the death. At this moment, Elder Lien could not help but frown, because he felt that he had been held back for too long. He naturally saw the green light at the foot of the Black Mountain. On his side, the Love Monk had fallen and there were no more reinforcements. However, the other party seemed to have a backup plan. The two Lotus Souls from the Three Realms galaxy seemed to be a variable. With that thought in mind, Elder Lien flipped his palm, and 3 silver needles appeared in his hand. They were 3 3-inch-long silver needles. Godly Void Needle. It was a top-grade Lianbua hidden weapon specially crafted by Elder Lien. Elder Lien had almost never used these 3 needles before, because there was no need at all. But today, he was prepared to use this to break out of his predicament. These 3 silver needles were meant to take the life of one of the Celestial River cultivators. Then, Elder Lien flicked his middle finger. 3 silver needles were sandwiched in countless coins and quietly went to Wang Shui. Elder Lien could already tell. Wang Shui had the highest combat power among the 5, and she seemed to be from White Mountain. The few Dharma treasures on her body all carried Bai Shan's aura. If it wasn't for Fa Lien Wang Zun, he would have already died in the hands of Wang Shui. Therefore, after killing Wang Shui, the rest would be easy to deal with. Ancient coins filled the sky, dancing in the air. At this point, Wang Shui and the others were already tired of dealing with the strange ancient coin and Elder Lien. Therefore, when the 3 silver needles were mixed in with the ancient coins, they did not immediately sense it. Chi-Chi, when the first needle appeared less than 10 feet away from Wang Shui's glabella, she was shocked. The silver light arrived in an instant. Not good. Wang Shui's face changed. Lianbua concealed weapon. However, Wang Shui couldn't avoid it. The speed of the silver needle was too fast. She discovered it too late. Shui, Mo Lang and the others also saw the silver light. However, it was too late for them to save him. The speed of the silver needles far surpassed theirs. Qi, the first silver needle directly pierced Wang Shui's glabella. However, when the silver needle touched Wang Shui's glabella, a white light suddenly burst out from between Wang Shui's brows. It was a protective white light. Chi-Chi. The first silver needle was directly melted by the white light. At the same time, the second silver needle also arrived. However, it was also melted by the white light between Wang Shui's brows. That white light was the aura that white-clothed Grand Lotus had sealed in between Wang Shui's brows. It could protect Wang Shui from death twice. In fact, this kind of protection was enough under normal circumstances. After all, there was almost no one who could kill Wang Shui twice in a row. However, the current situation was a little special. Elder Lian's silver needles were 3 in a row. Wang Shui had no intention of escaping. Qi, the third needle, arrived in an instant. Father, mother. Wang Shui knew that she would definitely die, so she muttered the last words. Puff, with a soft sound, the Lianbu's silver needle directly pierced between Wang Shui's brows. Wang Shui's face turned pale. She didn't want to die. She had regrets. She hadn't seen her father and mother yet, because she had been in Luofan town since she had memories. The beginning of her memories was like the House of Illusions. Mo Lang, Huan Hua, and her 2 aunts raised her. According to her grandfather, her father and mother had used a great magic power to teleport her out before they were sealed. After a few twists and turns, she finally arrived at Luofan town. Except for not having her parents by her side, Wang Shui had a perfect childhood. Mo Lang, Huan Hua, Wang Yu, and Xin Ming all cherished her. Moreover, Wang Shui was extremely smart and talented. She could learn all the spells in the House of Illusions in one go. She could also learn the spells of the other ancestral masters in Galaxy Town. She was the darling of the entire Galaxy Village. She almost didn't know what a bottleneck was. She cultivated and advanced all the way like a hot knife through butter. Songhai once said that Wang Shui's talent was even better than Amu and Mo Lang. Wang Shui was the master of the 3 realms galaxy cultivators. Later, she was chosen to go to White Mountain by chance. At first, she didn't want to go to White Mountain. She didn't want to leave the House of Illusions and the Galaxy Village. However, later, White Mountain promised to help her find her parents. She finally agreed to go to White Mountain. This trip lasted for more than millions of years. She became the last disciple of the white-robed Great Lotus Venerable. The white-robed Great Lotus Venerable even wanted to pass on his mantle to her. She could become the female Great Lotus Venerable of the true Law realm. However, Wang Shui still hoped to return to the Galaxy Village and the House of Illusions. She wanted to save her parents and be happy with them. She didn't want to become the Great Lotus Venerable. In her heart there was no true law, only her family. Wang Shui's pursuit was simple, but not simple. The silver needle entered her body. At that moment, Wang Shui only wanted to see her parents. She had never really seen them. In her heart, Amu and Xin Yan were great legends. They were very far away but very close. However, she didn't have a chance. Poof! Wang Shui heard the sound of the silver needle piercing her body. Master's protective power had already been used up. Master, avenge me! Wang Shui closed her eyes and said in her heart. However, Wang Shui suddenly felt that something was wrong. This was because after the silver needle entered her body, she didn't feel anything else. It was as if the needle had gently pricked her, and then the needle disappeared. What's going on? Wang Shui suddenly opened her eyes. Boom! At this moment, the body of the demonic husband not far from her suddenly exploded. A forbidden light shot out from the demonic husband's body, and at the same time, Wang Shui found that her body was actually entangled with an identical forbidden map. Death substitution technique. Wang Shui's expression changed greatly. She suddenly remembered. That was the first forbidden map that her grandfather engraved on her body. At that time, she was just a child in the core formation stage. Her body was just able to bear the burden of burying the forbidden map. She still remembered that the demonic husband said that it was a protective talisman. She was the best gift that Amu left for him. He wanted his eldest granddaughter to live without worries and be safe forever. Grandfather! Wang Shui saw the demonic husband's body collapse and rushed over like a madman. Chapter 1156. On White Mountain, under the ancient pine tree amidst the immortal fog. There was a stone table, a stone bench, and a world go puzzle. The wind blew and the fog dispersed. 2 cultivators appeared on the stone benches on both sides of the chessboard. They both looked like middle-aged cultivators. The one in white had a head full of white hair that shone. The one in black had black hair that seemed to be dyed with ink. The 2 of them looked somewhat similar. "Senior brother, my chess piece has moved first." The black-clothed Great Lotus Venerable smiled coldly, and a chess piece had already been placed on the chessboard. "It seems like your chess piece is going to be eaten by me. In the end, I will still win this game." The white-clothed Great Lotus Venerable laughed. "After being sealed for 3,000 years, don't tell me that I don't have any tricks up my sleeve? Junior brother, take a look at my moves. It's a pity that we can't personally play." The black-clothed Great Lotus Venerable snorted. "If we personally play, then it won't be a game of chess anymore." The white-clothed Great Lotus Venerable looked at the black-clothed Great Lotus Venerable meaningfully. "Junior brother, don't get carried away and forget the foundation of our game. The realms have their cycles, and the true laws have their own will. Our chess pieces are the general trend of the realms." The black-clothed Great Lotus Venerable said to himself, "I'm not afraid of that Wind Wheel Monarch Lord. If he really returns, I'll just demote him again. If he really returns, I'm afraid he won't be the Wind Wheel Monarch Lord anymore." The white-clothed Great Lotus Venerable sighed. Actually, what he said back then was somewhat reasonable. The black-clothed Great Lotus Venerable sneered, and did not say anything. He disdainfully refuted the Wind Wheel Monarch Lord's nonsense. Boom! The black door collapsed with a loud bang. The aura of the vast sea lineage was like the freshest air that rushed into the suffocating stone house. Amu and Shen Yen looked in the direction of the stone door together. For tens of thousands of years, only Black Lotus Heartless had walked in that direction. This time, a green light flashed, and Venerable Vast Sea, who was dozens of feet away, stood in front. Qing Moz and Xing Fei stood on both sides of him. Mu. Vast Sea saw Amu and Shen Yen, and was naturally quite excited. Immortal Venerable. Amu and Shen Yen were equally surprised. Qing Mozi and Xing Fei both heaved a sigh of relief. Seeing that Amu and Shen Yen were safe and sound, their tens of thousands of years of hiding and searching were not in vain. Chi Hua, however, at this time, the runes around Amu and Shen Yen instantly ignited. Countless black lotuses filled the area like countless demons. They roared and howled as if they wanted to refine Amu and Shen Yen alive. This was Black Lotus Heartless' final arrangement. In fact, the Black Lotus Heartless Seal Amu was also a preparation for this day. The Star River had not been completely purified because Amu and Sumo were still alive. Originally, he was going to purify Amu and Sumo together. However, if there was an accident, he didn't mind refining Amu with the Black Lotus fire first. The power of Amu and Shen Yen would eventually become the power for him to open the gate of White Mountain. Looking at the Black Lotus fire, Songhai and Amu sneered at the same time. At this time, if it was someone else who came to save Amu, they would definitely not laugh. Because no one could save Amu except Songhai and Sumo. Songhai could. Resonance. Amu and Songhai didn't communicate anymore. They had already begun to form a seal. In an instant, the same blue light lit up from their bodies. The same origin, the same heart, and the same root. Hua. The blue light on their bodies spread out at the same time. A wonderful scene happened. The Black Lotus fire that was originally burning between them was instantly washed away. Shen Yan's eyes lit up slightly, while Qing Mozi and Xing Fei nodded slightly. Looking again, Immortal Songhai suddenly moved forward and completely turned into a blue light. Boom! Immortal Songhai had completely integrated into Amu's body. Then, Amu slowly stood up. The blue light that filled the sky directly broke away all the shackles around him. Amu raised his hands slightly. Qing Mozi and Xing Fei looked at each other and then turned into light. One flew into his left arm and the other into his right arm. The strongest combination of the Songhai lineage. In the interstellar space, Wang Shui madly rushed to the front of Mo Lang. She really wanted to save Mo Lang. However, it was too late. Mo Lang's body had already completely exploded. The heavenly void needle looked small, but it was extremely powerful. One heavenly void needle could kill a Lotus warrior. The death substitution technique transferred all the damage that Wang Shui had suffered to Mo Lang. Mo Lang's Tao and soul were destroyed. Originally, Elder Lien was going to use it to kill Wang Shui. However, Mo Lang's body suddenly collapsed. For a moment, Elder Lien didn't know what was going on. However, he couldn't think too much at that moment. Killing one was one. Mo Lang was the enemy's second expert. Once Mo Lang died, the pressure on Elder Lien was suddenly reduced. All of the Mo Lang's forbidden paintings collapsed at the same time. Xian Tian, Xing Chen, and Yun San were furious. Mo Lang was dead. At that moment, Elder Lien had already condensed a handful of ancient coins. Kill! Elder Lien roared. All of the ancient coins in his hand condensed into a huge square coin with a hole in it. Runes flashed on the coin and its edge was as sharp as a knife. There was only this coin left in the air. It was at least 30 feet wide. Swish, Elder Lien swung his hand and the coin flew toward Wang Shui like a roulette wheel. This was enough to take Wang Shui's life. After witnessing Mo Lang's death, Wang Shui had completely lost control of her emotions. She charged forward, which was exactly what Elder Lien wanted. Xian Tian, Xing Chen, and Yun San used all of their strength to rush toward the coin. The Phoenix Feather Immortal Sword and the Mystic Yellow Umbrella attacked at the same time, but they were too slow. Elder Lien flicked his sleeve. Boom, whoosh! The tidal wave of Law Emperor's power sent the three of them flying. The phoenix flames on Xian Tian and Xing Chen dimmed. After all, they had already been injured. Both husband and wife were sent flying. Yun San gritted her teeth. She plucked the strings with one hand. Swish, with the power of the Dharmaraja, Yun San's body leaned forward, and then he and the zither directly stood in front of Wang Shui. This was the only way she could save Wang Shui. It was a life for a life. Yun San would risk his life to save Wang Shui. Ah, Wang Shui cried out again. At that moment, she felt that she was a helpless child who could only be protected. Boom, whoosh! The deadly coin snapped the zither in Yun San's hand into two like a chainsaw. Yun San's lips curved. Songhai, Mu, I can't wait any longer. Then, Yun San played with her fingers. She still had a string in her hand. She wanted to use this string to wrap around Wang Shui and change her direction. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. After the deadly coin snapped the zither, Yun San naturally fell to the ground. At that moment, Yun San felt a bone-piercing pain. The clothes on her back had been torn, and her skin had been cut open. The Grim Reaper was already standing behind her. However, at that moment she heard a familiar voice. Yun San, long time no see. Whoosh, endless power instantly enveloped Yun San, just like the warmth of that year and that lifetime in her memory. Chapter 1157. Boom. Celestial power filled the sky. Elder Lien thought that his deadly ancient coin was enough to kill Wang Shui. Later, he felt that he could only kill a female galactic cultivator. He did not expect that he would be sent flying by a cultivator in green. Phalian King. Elder Lien frowned. Since when did the enemy have a Phalian King? Moreover, he seemed to be coming from the direction of Black Mountain. Who are you? Elder Lien asked. I am Amu. Amu smiled coldly and waved his hand, shielding all the surrounding galactic cultivators behind him. His green robe seemed to hold up the sky of the galactic river. Amu. Elder Lien's expression changed instantly. the Lotus Soul of the Three Realms galaxy that Black Lotus had sealed. How did he break the seal? In the distance, Black Lotus' heartless expression was extremely ugly. Sumo did not come back to life. There was absolutely no problem with his own arrangement. But how did Amu come out? Moreover, how did Amu suddenly become Phalian King? When he sealed Amu was already a high-grade Lotus Knight. However, Amu had been sealed for tens of thousands of years. Even if he had some cultivation, he would not have become Phalian King. Elder Lien, kill him quickly! Black Lotus Heartless shouted. Dad, he killed Grandpa! Wang Shui was behind Amu and shouted with a crying tone. Huh! Amu frowned when he heard this, but he immediately smiled coldly. That's impossible, but I will definitely kill this Phalian King. I saw it with my own eyes. Wang Shui cried. Grandpa died in my place. Amu did not answer Wang Shui again. Instead, he went straight to Elder Lien. Shui. Xin Yan went to Wang Shui's side. Mother! Wang Shui threw herself into Xin Yan's arms and sobbed. Silly child. Xin Yan touched Wang Shui's head and said softly, You are exactly the same as I imagined you to be. It's just that back then, you were transformed from my hair. The current you is the real one. Wang Shui did not understand what Xin Yan was talking about. She cried and said, You must avenge grandfather. Xin Yan laughed. How many times has that old Taoist killed your grandfather? How many times? Wang Shui couldn't help but stop crying. Your grandfather cultivates the immortal demon 3 lives art, and he's even mastered it. He had 3 bodies, an immortal body, a demon body, and a mortal body. Unless he kills all 3 of your grandfather's bodies at the same time, your grandfather won't die at all. Xin Yan laughed. And? Wang Shui only remembered at this time. The ENC lineage had a forbidden art, the immortal demon 3 lives art. It was said that his grandfather was the only person who had cultivated. However, Wang Shui had never cultivated the art of immortal and demon 3 lives. How would she know the mystery behind it? Really? Wang Shui looked up at her beautiful mother. Of course it's real. Not far away, a white-haired old man with a slightly hunched body walked toward Wang Shui with a smile. King Absolute Physique. Then, he gradually transformed into the appearance of Mo Lang. Grandfather! Wang Shui was overjoyed. Outside Windmill Village, Jia Shuxing and Mr. Ren both looked pale. Jia Shuxing's chest was full of blood stains. There were also blood stains at the corner of his mouth. It seemed that he was beaten until he spat blood. A rose was directly inserted on Mr. Ren's shoulder. However, that rose had completely turned purplish-black. The rose of joy was poisonous. Mr. Ren's other hand was holding the fishing rod. However, that was only half of the fishing rod. The heaven hook that Mr. Ren was proud of had long been broken by Happy Girl's Jade Rui. Jia Shuxing and Mr. Ren's power of White Mountain had been exhausted. At this moment, they were an ordinary 9th-level Lotus Knight cultivator. Together, they had the power of White Mountain 5 times. Those powers didn't have much effect in front of Happy Girl. However, they risked their lives to temporarily block Happy Girl. She couldn't break into Windmill Village immediately. At this time, it was Lihan and Shui Ying who blocked Happy Girl. However, they were also completely at a disadvantage. However, Shui Ying relied on her unparalleled body technique to deal with Happy Girl. Happy Girl was extremely arrogant. She couldn't kill Shui Ying and Lihan for a while. She actually saw a woman who was more beautiful than her. Therefore, Happy Girl's fighting spirit was high. It was only a matter of time before Happy Girl broke through everything. No one could stop her. At this time, the aura of the Mo Mountain world had come over. The aura of Mu. Lihan and Shui Ying were shocked. At the same time, Happy Girl received an extremely dangerous signal. The other side had an extra Dharma Lotus King? This was not a good thing. At this time, The advantage of her side was only here. What if Sumo became a king? Thinking of this, Happy Girl raised her eyebrows. She must enter the village immediately. Whoosh! Happy Girl forced Xue Ying and Lihan away with one move and quickly made a seal with both hands. When he looked again, Happy Girl suddenly twisted her waist. Her body danced like a water snake. Swish! 3 Happy Girls appeared directly above Happy Girl's head. They were exactly the same, incomparably seductive, and each of them was holding a Rui. Dharma King Doppelganger Technique. That was a technique that Happy Girl could perform long ago, but she was wary of Jia Shuxing and Mr. Ren's White Mountain power. Therefore, she didn't perform it. In an instant, Happy Girl's main body and her 3 doppelgangers directly rushed to the Windwheel village. At that moment it was like 4 Dharma King experts attacked at the same time. If Jia Shuxing and Mr. Ren still had the White Mountain power, they could definitely block one of Happy Girl's doppelgangers, or even directly kill it. After all, they were doppelgangers. However, at this time, they were like arrows at the end of their flight and even seriously injured. Mr. Ren and Jia Shuxing's injuries were not light. Hee. Looking at Happy Girl's doppelgangers rushing over, Mr. Ren smiled coldly, and at the same time, his eyes flashed with a touch of determination. Shuxing, I'll go first. Whoosh! Mr. Ren gritted his teeth and directly rushed toward one of Happy Girl's doppelgangers. At that moment, Mr. Ren's body emitted a dazzling light. That was self-ignition of the soul. I'm fishing, Jia Shuxing smiled bitterly. Good brother, I'll accompany you. Chi-chi. The world-listening magic pen shook violently, but this time, it did not attack Happy Girl, but sent the world-listening magic pen directly back to the world-listening tower. At the same time, Jia Shuxing's body also emitted a dazzling light, and went straight to another Happy Girl's doppelganger. Snow Shadow and Lihan did not expect that these 2 Eastern Border law enforcers would actually choose to self-ignition of their soul at the last moment to block Happy Girl's doppelganger. That was the last resort that Mr. Ren and Jia Shuxing could use to block Happy Girl's doppelganger. Death. Boom, boom. 2 consecutive loud noises, the starry sky shattered, and the 2 doppelgangers of Mr. Ren, Jia Shuxing, and Happy Girl exploded at the same time. The rolling airwaves caused many small worlds in the surroundings to shatter. It's really not bad, it's worth it to advertise. It actually supports both Android and Apple phones. The Windwheel village shook violently. In the village, Bai Lai's eyes showed deep sorrow. Snow Shadow and Lihan suddenly pounced toward the other 2 Happy Girls. However, Happy Girl's real body directly blocked them. The roses that filled the sky were like a big formation. The light of Rui covered the sky. Boom, boom, Snow Shadow and Lihan were blocked. And at that moment, one of Happy Girl's doppelgangers had already rushed into the Windwheel village. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.